All right, guys, we are live. Welcome back to another great week of In the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio. This week, we're going to be talking to Andrew Subin of Vermont Cannabis Solutions, which will be a lot of fun, guys. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, locally, nationally, federally, however you want to say it. Even globally. We're really excited to have Andrew on. He's been on the show before. He's partners with our friend Tim at Vermont Cannabis Solutions. So these guys are really the epitome for everything that cannabis stands for here in Vermont, and they're the guys who we trust into providing us a little bit of education every week. So Andrew, I'm very glad to have you guys on. Today, just to let everybody know, Facebook is not liking anybody, it seems like. So we are going live onto YouTube, which is a first for us. Maybe we'll start doing this, but we're going to push it back to Facebook right now. So if you guys are tuning in and you're looking for us, you'll find us on Facebook. We're going to put it there and we'll just push it out from those platforms right to our page. So don't miss. Oh, I guess everyone would let me into it. Yeah, man, it's gonna be a fun day. But anyways, we do have Andrew Subin on, which we're really excited to talk about. Now, Andrew, you have been on the show before, but for people who don't know who you are, let everybody know who you are, what you're doing, and how you ended up doing cannabis law.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Joe. Always great to be on the show. Great to see you guys. Well, I have a background in criminal defense. I practiced criminal defense for about 25 years and got pretty done with that. Was really interested in practicing cannabis law. I moved to Vermont to practice cannabis law and start a cannabis law practice to coincide with the start of an adult use legislation that we're still kind of waiting for. We'll talk some more about that, I'm sure. But when I got here in 2018, I met Tim, and Tim had a really similar idea about providing legal services for Vermont's cannabis industry. So we partnered up and haven't looked back, and we've done our best to provide business consulting and legal services so far to all of our community of Vermont hemp growers who have done an amazing job. And the processors and the product manufacturers, and so exciting to see the success that some of these Vermont businesses have had, in the last couple seasons and even up to the present, and big things for the future for the Vermont hemp industry, for sure. And meanwhile, we're poised to on the eve of the start of adult use sales here in Vermont, which is super exciting, to me and Tim. And I think, to everybody in the industry, look, hey, I know there's feelings on both sides of the issue, and some people have problems with the bill and so forth. But no matter what, this is going to be an exciting time in Vermont cannabis for sure.
Now, we're close. I mean, we've been battling this thing for years now. Tim's been on the show talking about the work that's gone into it and the work that's going to have to go back into it if we don't make this pass. A lot of people don't. I guess we have a lot of people here in Vermont that are really for and really against. Now, Andrew, in your opinion, what are the pros and cons of this bill right now?
Well, look, the pros. I don't want to dismiss the people who have problems with the bill. Okay, there are issues from the bill for various reasons. Okay, but the pros are we need a legalized system going forward. We need to have an opportunity to participate in this national cannabis industry. We need a chance for our state to benefit off the tax revenue that cannabis can provide. We need a chance to create jobs coming out of a COVID shutdown and an economic rebuilding period. We need a chance to attract and retain young people in the state of Vermont, which has been a problem for us. The cannabis industry attracts really intelligent, great young entrepreneurs and business people. And, we need a chance to address some of the social justice issues that have historically faced cannabis. All of these things come through passage of a legal adult use cannabis bill. Status quo addresses none of these things. The status quo leaves people looking over their shoulder for the cops, like they always have been, The status quo doesn't provide any any revenue for the state. The status quo doesn't help us compete with states like Massachusetts and Maine and, inevitably New York. Vermont's got to get out in front and make our place in the legal cannabis industry. We're heading towards a legal cannabis industry, if not in every state, in every state that wants it. And boy, Vermont, being a tourist-based economy, has got to take advantage of the opportunity. The time is now. There's no time to wait. So you talk about pros and cons, and we can get. I'm speaking in generalities, but the pro is we have to do this. The con is we wait 3 more years or 4 more years or God knows how many years to wait if we don't do this now. And for Vermont in 2023 and 2024 to still be waiting, that is going to be unacceptable when there's legal sales in New Jersey and in New York and we've already lost the opportunity to beat Massachusetts. But every day that these states get ahead of us is bad for us. So the biggest pro is it's now. This is the bill that we have now. This is the one that could pass now. A different bill can pass later, maybe. And so, while there are some cons to it, my feeling is let's pass the bill now and work with what we have, because the other choice to wait for years for another opportunity is unacceptable.
Now explain to people what basically the reset button looks like for us here in Vermont if we don't pass it. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize that side of the coin. I mean, I think we're going to find out that we're going to blow this bill off, and then people that, the guys that were standing at the State House that are really complaining about this bill right now are going to realize it starts over, right? I mean, 100%.
Yeah, a critical point there, Joe. We're on a biennial system here. The legislature works on a biennial system here in Vermont. We're at the second end of that 2-year period. So at the end of 2020, for the start of 2021, it's a reset. Plus, we're electing a new slate of legislators. So you're talking about we don't know where anybody stands on this, and maybe the Democrats will do well in this election coming up, but this is not a party issue. And even people, if there's a liberal wave that sweeps in, that doesn't always translate to cannabis votes. We have the votes now. And not to mention, boy, you start with, you need somebody to sponsor that legislation. You need to draft new legislation. You need to introduce the legislation. And then you need to start through the raft of committees that this bill has gone through. Every single committee in the legislature wanted to talk about cannabis. And so the bill went through every committee. And I just don't think, and what people are, from what I'm hearing in Montpelier is, I don't think there's a big stomach amongst the legislators to deal with cannabis after this. Like they're cannabis out for a while. Mm-hmm. And so the chance of getting it on board again, boy, and starting over, you're talking about maybe a bill passing in the next biennium and restarting our whole clock, Mm-hmm. So, and there's no guarantee. It looks, people talk about, well, look, we could have a Governor Zuckerman and be talking about introducing a new cannabis bill under a Governor Zuckerman, God willing. And the governor, the lieutenant governor, the former lieutenant governor, candidate Zuckerman certainly has my support. But I think there's a good chance that Scott will win the re-election. I think people are pretty satisfied with his way that he's dealt with COVID. That is, to me, the primary issue in the election, in this election cycle. And so I don't think we can expect necessarily a Governor Zuckerman to usher in an era of like liberal cannabis in Vermont. He supports the bill we have now. And even if he was governor, I don't know that the bill that he will end up supporting as governor would be radically different than what we have now. Whoever goes to rewrite the bill is going to use S54 as a starting place. So we should talk about, what some specific issues people have with this legislation and how we can deal with that and how that might get put into practice when we get into the real world. those are legitimate discussions. But you know, in my opinion, to miss this opportunity right now is just something that Vermont's cannabis industry, or at least the adult use industry, put hemp aside, probably could never recover from.
Right. I mean, we are about a week away now, right? As far as their voting goes, right? We'll find out here shortly.
Yeah.
It seems to me like the biggest hang up, and it's pretty much in every state, right, is the dispensary issue and the corporation issue, right? You know, in Vermont, I think a lot of people are really confused still again of what this bill entails for the dispensary systems, right? Because we saw a couple of different bills being proposed, and we had S54, we had now, and technically, I guess we have two versions of S54 that were both being considered that have different aspects to the dispensary systems. What is the bill that's currently being reviewed right now, or is it still two different bills? And then how does the dispensary system work into those?
You know, this is the negotiation and the horse trading and real politics that's going on right now. They're taking the two bills and they're combining them into one bill. And you know, other people follow this more closely than I do. But it seems, and boy, Friday was a huge day for anybody who was watching this, because you know, Friday they seemed in the first part of the session like they were at an impasse and they were going to walk away and say this is not happening. And they took a break and they came back and said, okay, it's basically, it's worked out. And just in that moment, like, everyone's opinion of what is likely to happen right now changed. And all of a sudden it was like, wow, it's worked out. Like, you know, there's a real possibility that this could move forward right now and get onto the governor's desk. Now, what have they done? What compromises have they made with regard to the different versions of the bill? We don't know. A lot of this is happening in private discussions amongst the conference committee right now. And they haven't announced even when they're going to meet again publicly. And so it's a little bit hard to know the exact timing from day to day for this week and for next week. But yeah, it's happening now, sort of behind closed doors. You mentioned the dispensaries. We could talk about that for a second. And again, like, I'm not as well versed in citing the sections of the draft bills and so forth, but essentially what is called for is a integrated license that will be issued at the same time that small cultivation licenses are issued. And the integrated licenses will be just what they sound like. They will allow you to grow and process and operate retail. Those integrated licenses will only be available to the current dispensary license holders. And so the bill anticipates a period when all the small growers can grow, and their retail outlet for what they grow is the dispensaries for 5 months. After that 5 months, other people who are non-dispensary people are going to be able to open their retail locations. And small growers who are already licensed are going to have, in addition to the outlet of selling through the dispensaries, are going to have the ability to sell through whatever retail outlet they want. And there'll be other people who they can work with if they don't want to work with the dispensaries. So I understand the perceived injustice of allowing the dispensaries 5 months to operate retail when no one else is going to be allowed to operate retail. I feel what people have said about the dispensaries don't deserve that because of the way that they've run their operation over the years. You know, that there's no reason to give the dispensaries a head start like that, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard all of those arguments, and I agree with some of them. I agree with a lot of them. Fact of the matter is, this is a political reality in this state, and whether it's this bill or some imaginary bill in the future, this issue is not going away. And you know, the politicians who are voting on this bill and passing this bill feel strongly about this. And so, you know, in my personal opinion, I feel that the retailers who are going to compete with the dispensaries, yeah, they lose that 5 months. You know, I think they're going to find plenty of customers who are not wanting to go to the dispensaries when they open that after that 5 months. I think they're going to have plenty of customers and do a vibrant business. So I don't think the retail people are really going to be hurt by missing out on a theoretical 5 months of sales. Cultivators, hey, cultivators have an outlet to sell. You know, okay, dispensary sets the price, and maybe you can't work out those deals, and maybe the dispensary is going to be buying from their friends and so forth. I don't know about that. All that could be true, but look, at least there's a legal outlet for retail sales for a small grower at that point. And then 5 months, what is that? 2-3 cycles? That third cycle, you're going to be able to sell to your buddies who have a retail license, or use your own retail license if you have one. So. Right. So I feel your pain about the 5-month dispensary head start, but in reality, 5 months is a very short time. And, you know, there's going to be plenty left for the rest of the market after that 5 months. And dispensaries have all kinds of problems. Nobody wants to go to the dispensary. You know, the dispensaries are losing money hand and fist. They sell a shitty product. You know, maybe if they're selling some good product from some guys I know for a reasonable price, yeah, maybe I'd go, maybe. But I mean, there's people who would say, I don't care if they're giving away the best bud in Vermont, I'm not going to the dispensary. So the dispensaries have their own issues. And, you know, whatever, people wish the mill, wish them well, whatever, you know. By the way, a lot of the hate that's come down in the dispensaries, really, we should call it out for CBD. Right, and give the other dispensaries a little bit of a break, because a lot of that hate is really meant for one dispensary and not all the dispensaries.
And one person in that one dispensary.
Yeah, right.
Well, I mean, we definitely have brought up the issues that we see here in Vermont. I mean, and then when we speak dispensaries, it just isn't our Vermont dispensaries. We see issues across the country, man. But what we see across the country is somebody comes down and puts their foot down and locks that door. You know what I mean? Somebody holds these guys accountable, which is what we lack here in Vermont as well. I mean, we're bringing up some really great points here.
If I can jump in here real quick, Joe, just on that point, before we lose it. One of the things S54 does now is transfer control of our dispensary system from the Department of Public Safety, which has hated it and worked against it from the beginning, to this Cannabis Control Board. So at least we will have a authoritative body over the system that doesn't despise the system. And that's been a major reason we've had so many problems. And that's because the Department of Public Safety has ran it like shit. So now we can at least take it. The other thing I just want to jump in real quick, and then I'll give it back to Andrew here, is the thought that the dispensaries are somehow going to set the price for cannabis. No, the dispensaries are going to be desperate. They can barely handle 5,000 patients. They're going to have 80,000 adult use patients. They're going to need product more than anything to move. It is going to be the growers who are setting the price. The growers will get anything they want for it because the dispensaries will pay because they need it. Simple, like basic economics 101. I've heard this argument saying, oh, the dispensaries are going to control the market and control the price. No, it's the people with the product that control the price, not the people trying to get the product. So I don't understand the logic on that one either. So I just want to.
No, thank you, Tim. Those are like literally the 2 points I really wanted to stress on this topic. You know what I mean? When we talk about S54 and where we're at in Vermont, I mean, I know this isn't a nationwide issue, but a lot of what we see nationwide has a reflection to what we're trying to do here. I mean, we're seeing Maine, they're going, their rec is going to be legal October 9th is their due date. They're shooting for, right? They're issuing licenses right now. So you can go get your rec license in Maine right now to accomplish what their system looks like to be a really great system. I mean, even their dispensary system utilizes basically a co-op theory in mind where, you know, these guys can't go buy they can't grow their cannabis. It's not seed to sale. So to me, that's what I wanted to see here in Vermont, right? Like you said, Andrew, to support our local growers who are doing a great job, right? To give these guys a real market, and what's nice about having a market like that is it sets up the competition, right? So now literally that dispensary could go from selling the shittiest weed that they can't grow, let's be honest, right, to the next day having the best weed in the state at their disposal, right? And then like Tim says, unfortunately the market's going to set the price, right? It's going to be what you pay for it. And but unfortunately what we see in Colorado, right, and correct me if my theory's wrong on this, but like there really isn't a medicinal market out there anymore. It's all gone to wreck, right? Because the price structure, the licensing, how easy it is just to go down the street and buy whatever you want, right?
Oh yeah, in fact, in Washington as well. In Washington, they've completely shut their medical program. They have no medical program at all. If you're a medical card holder, you have some. You can show your card and save some sales tax. and there's larger, like you can buy more, you know, in one trip to the store if you have that medical card. But that's all it does for you. Other than that, it's a store is a store is a store. You know, I don't know if Vermont is moving in that direction.
Now, let me ask you a silly question on just that one point you just made. We're talking about the medicinal markets are actually shriveling up in states that have been legalized for a while, right? They've actually kind of run amok. They pushed them right out. I think that would happen in Vermont. I mean, legitimately, 5 months for these guys to stay running, to try to shift gears as much as they can to compete in a rec market that's literally pretty much like you said. There's an established rec market here. You know what I mean?
I would love to touch base on that from a grower's perspective, Joe.
Please.
The whole 5 months deal. When it comes down to it, 5 months is really one cycle. Unless you're already growing illegally, if you start on day one when you obtain your license, if you start, okay, you have 5 months from today until everybody else can start buying your stuff. Okay, I'm going to start my seeds today. Well, guess what? My seeds aren't going to pop for 3 or 4 days, and then it's going to be a month during veg before I even flip them into flower. And if I want big plants, I got to go much longer than a month. Then I've got a minimum of 6 weeks flower time, and that's if it's a really fast strain. Most you're looking more at like 10, and then you got a week-long dry time and a 2-week-long cure. So unless you're doing cryo cure or something along those lines, it's going to take you a minimum of 4 months just to have something even ready to present to a dispensary. At that point, you've got a couple of weeks where you have to deal with the dispensary, and then you can go after any retail location out there who's obtained a license at that point. The way I see it, I see this as a way for consumers in Vermont to obtain product until the growers are actually able to provide the product to the clientele and to the customers. That's what it's all about. This is just a stepping stone to help the growers get to where they need to be. And then the retail guys can come in, and these retail guys, 5 months is crap. You know, 5 months for the dispensaries, so what? It's going to take 5 months just for Vermont to start working out some of the kinks. And even then, some of the retail guys are going to come in and they're going to have huge gimmicks. They're going to say, oh, come here and you get this, 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 and this. You're not going to get that at a dispensary. You're not going to have the same sort of knowledge that you get with some of these bud tenders that live their life around cannabis. In reality, and I mean no disrespect to the dispensaries, most of these people didn't start out growing cannabis. They didn't start out in the cannabis industry. They started out somewhere else entirely and sort of happened into it. Those are not the people that you want telling you how to use your medicine or what type of strain you want to use every day. You want to talk to the guy who's using those strains every day, the one who's been around the ropes and been around cannabis for years and years and years, not necessarily had to live the illegal market. I'm not saying you have to have been, a felon or anything along those lines to actually make it in the industry. What I'm saying is you actually have to have some sort of knowledge about it aside from, oh yeah, I'm just here to make money. Oh yeah, this is your medicine. Here you go. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that, Joe. And I mean, I think, you know, it's maybe looking at it a bit, like Tim said, we're looking at it a bit upside down. These well-respected growers, right? These well-respected companies, there's already brand recognition in Vermont for cannabis.
Absolutely.
You know, I wanted, and I'll throw out, you know, Tall Truck, Fat Guy, Magic Man. All right, we know that these are quality products made by masters of the art, right? And they already have people want these products because they're some of the best. You know, hey, whoever's listening, look, much love to everyone. I know there's a lot of good growers out there, and I don't mean to leave anyone out. But my point is, you know, what about exclusivity deals? What about there's only one place you can get Magic Man edibles? You know, there's only one place you can get this particular company's oil, or a couple of them, you know, and all of a sudden, like, the retail shops are fighting to stock their shelves with this high-end stuff that everybody's looking for, because that's what the consumer is going to want. So, you know, it's a real opportunity for those brands. You know, if you look at California, which obviously is, we don't normally like to look at California as an example for ourselves, because California is a world unto itself, and it's sort of the mecca of illegal and legal cannabis both at the same time. But if you look at a guy named like Frenchie Cannoli, and Joe, I know you know who I'm talking about. Maybe if you don't know Frenchie, people should Google that. But Frenchie makes finger hash, and And, you know, so first of all, he's got growers who only grow strains for him to make hash with. And that's where that strain goes. It goes to Frenchie to make hash. Now that hash is only made by Frenchie, and Frenchie then has a relationship with retail shops up and down California. That's the only place you get the Frenchie finger hash. That's it. And so that's what I want to see for Vermont. I want to see, like, wow, where do I get that oil? Because that stuff is awesome. Well, okay, you know who made that? They made it up in the Northeast Kingdom, and the only place you can get it is out this one retail shop in I don't know where. But that's what I see. Those are the kind of deals for exclusive product, small batch product that are going to be real lucrative for Vermont, I think.
Well, isn't that what we kind of see in Vermont and in a lot of these, we'll call craft states, not just Vermont, but like, I mean, there's exclusivity to high-end craft, right? And that's what's going to make it that's what's going to drive its value even up, like you said. There's only one place I can get this. So every tourist, everybody that's ever heard of this legendary strain or like you said, Frenchie Cannoli, yes, he's a master, man. If you guys don't know Frenchie Cannoli, huge shout out to Frenchie Cannoli. He does come to Mass a lot, guys. Mark Hewitt Jr. does and is one of his growers down in Mass, home to wall cultivation. Has brought him here a few times. Big shout outs to Mark and his guys over there. And then again, like you said, it's phenomenal fire product. But and I'm sure Thomas, Chef Rodney, and all the growers tuning in right now, due to our limits and laws here in the eastern states at least, we can't go nuts unless we're really pushing the limits. You know what I mean? So how much cannabis can we grow without that license? So I think what you and Tim are bringing up great points where we're just kind of looking at it all fucked up. If we look at Mass, they have a Cannabis Control Commission, right? They do great things. I mean, again, they're not 100% perfect, but like to have a commission that can sit there and just deal with what pertains to our industry is going to save us immensely in the amount of legal time frames, just structures we have to go through. Because if we can pull, like you said, from the hands of certain other departments that are dealing with all other multiple things, hopefully when we present bills and we get these things online, or we have an issue with it, I mean, say whatever you want about the Mass Cannabis Commission, right? They've done a lot of great things, and they've really pushed forward things. I mean, again, nobody's 100% perfect, and it does take a lot of time. And this is what we're trying to stress to people. Look at the years it's taken to get them to where they're at, right?
This is another one of the issues that people have voiced a complaint with about the S54, and whether it's going to be that the cannabis control entity will be within the Department of Agriculture, the Agency of Agriculture, or whether it would be its own independent cannabis control board. A lot of people felt like let's keep that within the Department of Agriculture because they've done such a great job with hemp, and they've been so willing to work with growers on hemp, and we love working with them. I think that's not a very big issue. And in fact, speaking with the people at the agency, they said it really would probably make no difference if it was part of the Agency of Agriculture. It would be staffed with a new staff. The Cannabis Control Board is going to be staffed with a new staff. How those appointments are made, as we move forward with passage of a bill, the next thing is who's going to be on the Cannabis Control Board. Wow, talk about the rubber hitting the road, and really what is Vermont's cannabis industry going to be like? Who is going to be on the Cannabis Control Board? Is a huge question. The two versions of the bill they have different ways of nominating people to the board or appointing people to the board. And so I don't know exactly what the resolution of those differences are going to be, but the governor is going to have some input, certainly. There may be approval by the Senate for the candidates who are nominated to the board. But boy, people who want to advocate for whatever aspect of the bill they're not happy with, trying to make sure that the people who are appointed to the board are the right people. Boy, that's huge, and what a huge opportunity. To the extent that we can get in there and influence that and suggest people and suggest people that shouldn't be there. Be something to really watch carefully as it starts to happen. Well,
let's bring up two big things, right? One of the biggest things that no one's even discussed really that I've seen out there besides us a couple times is funding this, right? To get a board established is going to cost the state a lot of money, right? When we talk about, all right, guys, I gotta get my son a hug. I'm sorry, he's leaving. Say hi, everybody. Love you, buddy. All right, talk to you later.
Hey, Connor.
So everybody doesn't know that's my son. He's if you follow us on social media, he's a big part of my life. But anyways, he's on his way out to his mom, so he's gonna go have a fun night with mom. The couple things I want to talk about is the one thing that Thomas brings up a great point from a grower's perspective, right? Timothy's brought up a couple of great points, and Andrew, you guys have kind of have almost opposite opinions here in a couple different areas, which is great to hear, because it's you guys, you guys represent our people here in Vermont, right? 5 months, I think, is acceptable. I think a CCC board, Cannabis Control Commission, however you want to put it, would be something that is great, but we have to figure out a way to fund it, right? So is this where the big thing with the dispensaries stay on the board, because they're paying a hefty fee for this 5 months, correct?
You bet. And license fees are going to help fund this thing. Of course, that's one of the funding mechanisms for it. They're trying really hard to make it, zero money out on the state budget. So yeah, I think for that reason as well, and for the reasons we already discussed, the 5 month thing is not a big deal. So let's talk about some of the other problems that people have had with it. Saliva test. Okay. The governor said he insisted on a saliva test. The House said they wanted a saliva test. Boy, we don't like saliva in COVID times, do we? Really? Senate, that was like a walk away from the table at one point. Take that out or we're walking away. The resolution of that seems to be they can get a saliva test if they have a warrant. Mm-hmm. From Tim, and I think Tim and I share our opinion on this with a long background in criminal law. They can get a warrant right now for your saliva if they pull you over and they can't tell what drugs you're on. So really, a saliva test with a warrant is no different than current Vermont law. So I can accept that, even though I understand, that the people who are going to be pulled over and who are going to be subjected to waiting around while they make a phone call to get a warrant for saliva are probably going to be people of color. I understand racial bias in policing. I don't know how to address that in the cannabis bill, in this part of the cannabis bill. I think that the saliva test also is certainly inadmissible in court, and it doesn't tell whether anybody's impaired or anything. So those results would ultimately be thrown out of court or be susceptible to being challenged in court. So those are my answers to the people who say saliva test. Oh no, yes, I agree, but the warrant requirement, satisfies my constitutional feelings that, you got to be kidding me about a saliva test. With a warrant, if they have probable cause to present to a judge, they can do a lot of things. They can violate a lot of your rights. They can lock you up. They can search your house or your car if they can convince a judge that they have a reason to. So if they got to convince a judge that they have a right to look at your saliva, I don't love it, but I can accept that.
Now, we've discussed.
Quick, Joe, for next question, just tack on to that. And the other fact is that it is incredibly unlikely that the results of a saliva test would ever be admissible in court against a defendant because of relevance. They're not relevant to one of the elements of DUI. So therefore, any basic defense attorney would file a motion to exclude, and they would almost guaranteed to be excluded. So even if they can take the test, it's never going to come in as evidence against somebody.
Well, you make a great point. Sorry about the phone call. It's a hassle, though. You know what I mean? And then the other thing I wanted to ask you guys too, on just that, on the pullover part, being searched in your car, the smell of cannabis is not something that is warrantable for a search, is it?
Joe, look, the smell of cannabis from if somebody's driving a car, yeah, sure, that's probable cause to believe that somebody may be driving under the influence of cannabis. Just as the smell of alcohol is probable cause to believe that somebody may be driving under the influence of alcohol. They may not be, but the officer is going to be allowed, if you roll down your window and he says, whoa, it smells like booze in the car, he's going to be able to investigate that to see whether you're driving under the influence of a substance. Same goes for cannabis. It's legal, just like alcohol is legal. But if you're driving and a cloud comes out, he's entitled to investigate whether you're driving under the influence of cannabis. Boy, not an easy thing for him to investigate, by the way. It's super hard for them to prove cannabis DUI at all. And if anybody's listening, a cannabis DUI is not an alcohol DUI, and you need special legal counsel to defend you on a cannabis DUI. So call us if you're in that situation or if you know anybody. Don't plead guilty to a DUI based on cannabis, because you're not guilty. So.
Right. I mean, that's why I say there's a lot of weird areas of laws, and we've seen it being discussed where it was like, what's the difference between burnt weed and fresh weed? Can they pull you over and hold a charge to you because the car smells like weed? I mean, you make a great point. If they pull you over and a cloud of smoke comes billowing out the door, they might have you there, right? I mean, there's
right. But in your car, but not in your house, which is a huge difference. I mean, for years, most of my career was defending mostly pot growers in Washington State, and of course a lot of pot consumers, of course. And so many search warrants were based on the cop doing what was called a knock and talk. Walk up to the front door of your house, knock on the door. Who's home? Nobody. You open the door. I smell it. Yeah. I smell burning marijuana. They're in your house now. They're going to call the judge. I smell burning marijuana. They're in there consuming illegal narcotics. I want a warrant to search the house. Yes, here's your warrant. And now they're in your house. So, or they send the power guy to read the power meter, and he's snooping around your house and reporting back to the cop, hey, guess what? I smell growing marijuana. Well, now, I mean, whether they smell burning marijuana or growing marijuana or whatever they smell in your house, it's not probable cause to believe you're committing a crime in the house. No search warrant for the house. The car is different, all right? And you have less rights. We have less rights in our cars. So yeah, my personal policy is don't smoke and drive. You can smoke when you get there, man, right? Or smoke before you leave the house. But I don't smoke while my car is in motion. I just don't think it's a good practice.
I could jump in too. The thing about when you get, when the cops have reasonable suspicion to believe you may be driving under the influence of cannabis based on the smell of it, it's still only that doesn't mean they can carte blanche do anything they want. Their investigation is limited to determining whether the driver is intoxicated. So they can say, I've got probable cause to think you're driving intoxicated. They can't go into the trunk and start ripping it open. They can't start opening up closed packages in the back of the vehicle, because none of that really has anything to do with whether or not you're intoxicated. They can ask you questions. They can ask you to step out. They can ask you to do standard field sobriety tests. If they decide to make an arrest of you, they can search your immediate person, what's called a search incidental to arrest. But they can't just simply have willy-nilly now have the right to go through everything, because the investigation, their probable cause and what they can do is limited to what crime may be being committed. And one of the things that really was difficult about drug crimes prior is that the smell of marijuana would constitute possession of drugs. A possession of drug charge is so broad. I mean, that would give them carte blanche to be able to rip your car apart, rip you apart, conduct searches, all in the name of, oh my God, getting drugs off the street, and this is an illegal drug. Now, even when they still have that right based on the smell of cannabis, it's still a much more limited search. Not that it's justified or good or proper or not complete bullshit, but it is better than the bad old days.
And not to go. I mean, we could do 2-hour show on search and Fourth Amendment law.
Right.
That's my specialty. But if you are placed under arrest, they do have the right to search the interior of your car. So that's just the way it is. So the safe place to keep, if you're driving with stuff that you shouldn't be driving with, keep it in your locked glove compartment, or keep it in your trunk, or keep it behind the back seat. Don't keep it in the passenger compartment of the car.
Right. Don't keep it within arm's reach, technically, in essence. Right. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna shift gears real quick because we're going to bring on Thomas with his little grower's guide. Give us a little brain break on the laws. But no, this is important stuff, man, because I don't think people realize it. And you guys literally see this stuff, and this is what happens. Literally, I mean, this is how people get caught. This is the little things that end up putting you into a predicament that nobody wants to be into. Correct?
Yeah.
Not that we don't want you making
Too often,
money.
all too often. Nobody should ever be in a predicament because of weed. End of story.
No, I mean this is the interesting thing. I mean, we should be building businesses and enjoying the laws that we can to succeed with this plan, not fighting the law still, especially when we have a state that's medically legal.
Yeah, I want to the intersection of cannabis law and criminal law. Like, look, cannabis is as for years has been an excuse which sucks people back into the criminal justice system.
Yep.
Whether it's a dirty UA on when you're on probation, right? You're not in the criminal justice system for cannabis in the first place, but you have a dirty UA when you're on probation, and cannabis is sucking you back in.
Yep.
To the criminal justice system. Or whether it's you were smoking a joint and now you're pulled over, they smelled the burning marijuana, now they search your car and find I don't know, maybe something else. It's cannabis that sucked you into that problem. So so legalizing cannabis and establishing an adult use bill can stop the use of cannabis by the cops and by probation officers and judges and everybody, use by the system to suck people back into the system because they use cannabis. It's not fair.
No, it really isn't. And we got to set some sort of thing up. The one thing I really want to say though, before I get to Thomas, and I kind of want to leave it in Thomas's hands as well, is we're talking about the dispensary systems, right? How they're pretty much going out. Most states, like you said, I mean, what do I get when I buy a license? What do I get when I support these guys? What's cheaper over here at the store where they're not taxing me, the state tax and the everything tax on top of the tax and with the tax, right? Now, federal legalization and insurance. I mean, isn't that the big ticket at some point in time? Would be the insurance part of it, right? If we could ever get the medical market federally insured. So when you have that card, you can go get your medicine, you can get it paid for. I mean, up until that point, like you said, what is the legitimacy of any sort of dispensary market in any sort of rec market is, I guess, what I'm saying.
I mean, you could conceive of some reasons to keep a medical market, to offer products that you might not want to offer to the rest of the public, I suppose, some really highly potent 70% THC oil or something that someone's using because they need that level. Look, some of these people that are trying to fight cancer,
yep.
And that are using cannabis instead of chemotherapy, boy, the dosages are over the top. They're shocking to people who are to recreational users. The dosages are shocking, really. But that's people who are trying to use it for chemotherapy, for crying out loud. Like, they know what they're doing,
regimen.
And they need that amount, and they're not getting high from it. They're using it to establish a baseline for their own cancer treatment. So if that's where you're at, yeah, and you need some products that shouldn't maybe be sold to the regular public, maybe that's a useful place for a medical system to do that. Well, I don't know why you can't have those products in the regular store, only available with a card. I don't think you need your whole own store for that, but there might be some products, maybe that person, it's a real pain, maybe literally it's a pain in their back to come to the store and go out and make a purchase. So they want to buy a half a pound or they want to buy a pound, because that's their medicine. If that's 90 days worth of medicine, they should be able to buy a pound if that's what they need.
Yeah. And if you're going to make something like Pico or RSO, Thomas can discuss that a little bit too, or Chef can as well. You need a pound or more of really high quality product. Otherwise, why make it? You know what I mean? Because it is
absolutely. I mean, if you're going to be making, RSO or FICO or anything along those lines, making it in small batch is, I guess fine if you're just going to use it periodically on a recreational basis. But let's be honest, most people that are looking for recreational basis aren't looking at RSO or FICO. That's for the cancer patients, the people that have really bad arthritis, the people that are really sick, and they're not taking a little bit of oil a day. I have patients that I work with that are going through a 60 milliliter bottle in a week. I mean, they need lots of cannabis in order to make that happen. And I'll tell you, even the limits for medical patients for growers, that's just not enough for some of these patients.
Yeah. I mean, and like Andrew, and you're saying, you know, the amount of cannabis you can consume in a day, you know, we've all, well, not all of us, but like I've helped people go through the Pico treatments, right? And it's a buildup, right? So some certain point in this buildup, like you are literally for a couple of weeks, knock the fuck out, I guess is the best way you can say it. I mean, it's no different than a
Absolutely,
narcotic.
pretty much
Half a day.
comatose, you know?
Right.
Wake up, eat a sandwich, have a glass of water, go to the bathroom and take a nap. And repeat for pretty much 2 weeks, and then slowly you come out of it, and then eventually they feel so much better. You know, it helps with the pain management, it helps with the inflammation, it helps with the anxiety and the stress associated with being sick, which that in itself can make a person sick. So just helping relieve the stress can help a person heal. So that in itself is just amazing.
Yeah, no, it's just, but we make a good point though. It takes a lot of cannabis to get to a point where you can actually have a regimen, and that's just one regimen, right? A pound and a half. I'm sure you could probably cut it down, but then you're just cheating yourself at that point.
Incidentally, Joe, you know, I was reading last week about CBD, and they were saying the same thing. That to really achieve the effects of CBD, which seem like they are really, you know, impressive what CBD can do. But in some of these studies, people are taking, you know, thousands of milligrams a day of CBD, and so the amounts that we're taking recreationally just aren't close to enough to achieve the things that people are talking about that CBD can do. So I just thought that was interesting.
That's part of the problem. That's part of the problem, Andrew, is, you know, a lot of people are out there selling products that are 250 milligrams per bottle, and the bottle's 60 milliliters. Like, okay, 250 milligrams per bottle, 60 milliliters, what's that equate to? Like 2.5 milligrams per serving or something? It's absolutely ridiculous. You literally have to take 100 to 500 times that amount per serving in order for it to actually be beneficial in that aspect. And then you have to take it religiously 2-3 times per day, every day, to build it up in your system, just like any other medication, because you're not going to notice a difference on day 1. You're not going to notice a difference on day 2. And it's the people that actually stick with it and actually have the access to enough CBD, or have the access to produce enough of their own, that actually see the actual benefits from it.
It's really interesting.
Like, when you're going to a dispensary and you look at the edible lines and stuff, I mean, speaking from, you know, a chef's perspective, like, it's interesting because I'll see, you know, a brownie, let's just say a brownie at a dispensary. Obviously, there's a markup. Well, you're going to have people that make that, you know, the artisanal blend, if you will, and they have those available as well. And the price differences are obviously going to be different. But which one's really the highway robbery? Usually it's the dispensaries, and I'll be honest with you. But, you know, if you look at it, let's say you're going for the CBD, right? And you buy a 200 milligram CBD brownie, and you're like, well, I'm an avid user, and you smash the whole thing. You kind of just wasted your money, honestly. I mean, because here's the thing. A, it's not going to be like as instant as, you know, smoking it or vaping it. And B, I mean, 200 milligrams of CBD, let's be honest, guys, really isn't shit. You know what I'm saying? It's really not. Like, you're going to, okay, your finger's going to stop hurting for about 10 minutes. And then, as you guys were saying earlier, you need pounds to make good FICO, and you get used to that, because that's the kind of cure that some people need. Dude, they're using it for chemo patients, you know what I mean? So it's like, that shit's potent as hell. If you put a little, you know, if you put a little bit of that in a brownie, that's a different story altogether. But again, we go to who's buying the brownie. Is it a person trying to heal, or is it just a, you know, an idiot like me that just smoked a J and was like, yo, let me just add to this? That's really where it comes in. But again, the price gouging, it's insane. Like Tom was saying, man, it's like, okay, 200 milligrams of CBD, that shouldn't be that bad. But why is that brownie $25?
Yeah. No, it's the price gouging is crazy. I think the way the market's established, and people who make the brownies know that there's a great markup in that little field. You know what I mean? Like, for what you use. But we all make a great point. By the way, I stress on, it's like, you know, if you go get in a car accident, you need a medication to knock you the fuck out. You're at the hospital. You're getting knocked the fuck out, right? Morphine, any sort of opiate. That's the design of it. So you stop and let your body heal, right? Why would we expect cannabis to be any different? And Thomas, you made the point I make every freaking day to everybody who does anything in CBD world. I think the whole CBD market's a farce. We've discussed this a lot of times because, again, it's great to go get 25 milligrams in something so you feel something because it's just a great little feel and you're like, yeah, great, you know what I mean? But as a patient goes, what's that really doing for a patient? Not much. And then when we process these cannabinoids down into whatever extraction or whatever process we use to make whatever we're consuming at this point, we're losing a lot of value to it medicinally, right? We're going more towards a distinct, cannabinoid, right? Whether it's an isolate or not, right? But like through, decarbing and off gassing and aging and things like that. Tom will tell you, we talk about this a lot on the show. You know what I mean? We start off with 800 cannabinoids, and by the time we put it into that brownie or it gets in your mouth, there's probably 60, right? We just happens to be that we have CBD and we have THC, and as it goes, they become more relevant in the equation, right? If we go smoke some fresh flower today that we just picked off our outside crop yesterday, right? Because a lot of people are taking crops down. We're not getting high, right? It's a THC, it's a delta 8 high, right? Because it's a THCA. We haven't nothing's converted, it hasn't been heated. There's no off gassing. You know what I mean? So when it comes to medical stuff, I think we missed the bullet there. But you guys make a great point. It's so expensive when you think about it. You know what I mean? And then it follows the THC market. Now THC market, that's the play market. I get the appeal there, right? But when we want to talk patients and we've got to talk making Pico, should it cost somebody $4,000 to make Pico? Should it cost somebody $3,000 to make Pico so they can get a good ton of weed? You know what I mean?
By the way, like the chemo, it's probably less than what the chemo drugs cost.
True.
I make that point, but you're right. To the patient, it's not, because you're not going to be able to put it on insurance. You were making that point earlier, Joe. Great point. Of course, those patients should be able to have their insurance pay for that. But that requires not only a change to federal law, most likely, but it also requires the willingness of the insurance companies, which is a whole nother problem because the insurance companies are dicks.
Mhm.
And so
That's saying it lightly.
they've had the opportunity to insure hemp since for I don't know, more than a year now, and the insurance companies are not willing to insure hemp because they don't know what it's worth. They don't know what diseases can come to a hemp crop in the course of a year. They don't know what it's going to be worth when it's grown. Except
they're the ones betting on the odds, really, right?
they have no track record. They have no track record for what the risks are, and so they're like, no, we're not writing insurance policies on that. So I would imagine, you have similar issues in the adult use, getting the cooperation of the health insurance companies to add now cannabis to people's health insurance policies. There's going to be some resistance there, I can guarantee you.
They're just going to claim that it's too new.
Right. It's not proven. It's not proven effective and so forth. There's no FDA approval for that yet.
That's what we're seeing a lot of that reaction, and unfortunately, we all know better, but it's a great scapegoat. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the side of the road thing, testing for DUI. I mean, it's been everybody's had a scapegoat, so we can go yeah, but and we can't get over that hurdle, right? Before we get too far deeper into the show, we're gonna get Thomas going here. Because if we want to get you going, Tom, we are talking about the segment that you did this week. And it is one of those segments where, we were discussing what we're going to do this week, right? But what's everybody doing right now? You know what I mean? If you have a crop outside, you're doing what?
Right. So right now, everybody is looking at their crop going, oh, is it time for me to harvest? How do my buds look? Am I seeing any bud rot? What's going on here? I can't tell. Help. So for anybody that's out there doing that, the first thing that I can suggest is look at your trichomes. So this is a quick video about how to harvest based on the look of your trichomes. We do talk a quick bit about harvesting early if you're running into poor weather conditions. But for the most part, this is a straightforward, really quick video about how to harvest based on trichomes. So go out there, get your jeweler's loop, and I'll see you next week.
All right, guys, we're going to get that going for you. And here is Thomas with his trichome building experience. If I can find you here, buddy. I have you here. What am I doing? Now, one of the biggest issues we see is mold, right?
Look at that beard. That's a mountain man beard if I've ever seen one.
We're nearing the middle of September now at this point, and we're approaching harvest for a lot of Vermont farms and outdoor grows. You know what that means? It's time for a harvest segment. When it comes to growing in Vermont, most growers and farmers are looking to harvest their cannabis and their hemp around the middle of September to the middle of October. Unfortunately, we don't have much more of a leeway than that because it gets pretty cold and damp in the state of Vermont. And a lot of farms are actually even going to have issues with their plants approaching October 1st. With that said, if your plants are running into some issues where it's being too cold or wet outside and you chance having some rot or mold issues, at that point, we usually lost audio, Joe. Crop. That entirely depends on the actual THC percentage of your test results. Unfortunately, many CBD crops are not able to reach full maturity in the hemp field without exceeding the THC percentage. With that said, most of the methods that we would normally use to determine maturity of the plant don't work when you're looking to stay within federal compliance. One of the easiest ways and rudimentary ways to determine how mature your plant is just to look at the plant. If you experience leaves that are slowly dying off, yellowing, as well as lush, full buds that are slowly starting to have their hairs turn a brown or an orange in color, at that point, you're most likely approaching your harvest point. Now, with that said, one of the best tools that any grower can have in their arsenal is a jeweler's loop. One of these bad boys. So what's so great about a jeweler's loop? Well, it lets you look at your trichomes. Now, what's so important about that is your trichomes determine the actual maturity of your plant. Now, you have trichomes that you're going to see that are on the clearer side, and then you have your cloudy trichomes followed by your amber. Now, your clear trichomes, those are your immature trichomes. Those are the trichomes that indicate, yeah, I've got some THC, yeah, I've got some CBD, but I'm not there yet. Your cloudy trichomes, those are the trichomes that are right there at the point of maturity. Those are the ones that are going to have your highest amount of cannabinoid profile prior to the start of degradation. Now, your amber trichomes are going to be after the plant has started to degrade. A lot of those amber trichomes are going to be high in cannabinoids such as CBN, and it's going to actually provide you a more couch lock style effect than if you were to harvest with, say, cloudy trichomes. So to review, clear trichomes are immature and your plant shouldn't be harvested at that point. Usually it's going to provide you a racy head buzz, maybe a headache, and not really provide much beneficial effects. Cloudy trichomes are going to be your mature trichomes. Normally, under most circumstances, Vermont Grow Coaching likes to harvest with about 75 to 80% cloudy trichomes and about 10 to 15% amber. There may be a few clear ones still thrown in there, but when it comes down to it, as long as you're seeing a fair share of cloudy and or amber trichomes, your plants are ready to go. So let's take a look. So you can see by the first photo, those trichomes were mostly clear. That plant is still immature and is not ready to be harvested. The second photo shows more cloudy trichomes. Again, still some clear in there, so you could harvest it. It would produce a decent product. However, not quite as mature as we'd like to see at harvest. The third photo that you just saw, that's the ticket. If your trichomes look like that, your plant is ready for harvest today. You can go ahead and harvest it, start her drying, and get the curing process going so that you can be enjoying your smoke in as little as 3 weeks. In the event you have a freeze dryer on hand, make sure to give us a call and we'll happily teach you how to dry and cure your product in only 24 hours. Thanks for tuning into Grower's Guide. Hopefully now you have a general understanding of when and how to harvest your plant. If you have any questions or concerns regarding today's segment or would like to set up a consultation appointment, please reach out to us at vermontgrowcoach.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram or contact us directly at 802-342-5381.
I really think that's the biggest question everybody asks for us, right? Is when do you know? A lot of people are doing like the auto thing where, you know, there's basically a whole time without sheet for what you got going on there. Now, the you bring up a great point, and what I think we got to kind of almost dumb it down a little bit more for people with the whole thing with like the trichomes, right? The effects, right? Like the longer you go, the more
Right.
kind of like indica style effect in essence, right?
Right, and I don't even like that terminology anymore. Sativa
Well, we don't like
versus
to
indica.
talk
You're
about
really
it.
looking, you know, you're really looking at, when you say sativa versus indica, you're really looking at the origin of where the plant came from, and not really the effects provided by the plant. You know, your indica style plant, yeah, you got a short bushy style structure, you've got fat fan leaves, and you've got a plant that finishes relatively early, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, whereas a sativa, tall, thin leaves, usually pretty lengthy. In Vermont, you get a good wind and boom, it's on the ground, it's snapped over. It's going to stretch. It's going to harvest in late October, which is horrible. I mean, you might get a few sativas that are on the 7 to 9 week time frame, but a lot of sativas are really long flowering. And when it comes down to it, it really has nothing to do with the effects that you feel from the finished bud. Because I've had some sativas before that when they go to full maturity and go past and they start degrading a little bit, and you get some CBN in there, you know, yeah, you may get a head rush from it, but then boom, you're right on the couch and, you know, you're eating a sandwich and falling asleep on yourself. Whereas I've also had other indicas that are short and bushy in structure and just the densest bud you could ever have in your life, but at the same time, the most energetic feeling because it was harvested just at the point of maturity and not actually reached the point of any sort of CBN or degradation at that point.
You're knocking it out of the park today, dude. Like, you're on fire.
Crazy.
I could
That's
not.
how
It's all the
babies are
sour.
made.
It's all the
That is
sour
how babies
diesel,
are
Tim.
made.
Well, I mean, he raises all the points that, you know, we talk about a lot, and then Thomas is right on, like you said, Tim, he's right on the money, dude. These are the questions that, you know, a lot of
That
we
dude
see on the
is
internet
money.
all the time. Like, how do I know? What's this? What's that? Is this a male? Is this a female? You know what I mean? And these are, if it's your first or second or third time, let's be honest, right? Like, you're a little nervous about when to do it. You're maybe over anxious. A lot of people do pull it down too early. You know what I mean? But then again, if you have a certain strain, and this is why I bring this up a lot, because we're talking about the way you can really swing a strain's effect on you, right? Like, how many times have we smoked a sativa dominant, or what should be what we call a sativa dominant strain? I know it's different for everybody, but that let's say we've smoked before to have enjoyed for that feeling that someone either did wrong, went too long, and it just changed the whole effect. So now it's like, hey, why do I feel this way? You know what I mean? Like, this normally doesn't do it to me. I mean, I run across stuff like that. I've actually had an experiment go away sideways and wrong and whatever, and months later it was taken down, and it was actually a really unique experience. I almost kind of want to mess it up again, but you know, that's how you learn things. But I mean, you know, when we're talking about today, trichomes, it's a big word for people, right? Like, what the hell's a trichome? You know what I mean? How do I know what I'm looking at? You know what I mean? And then like, again, you knock it out of the park, and you give everybody a great reason to pick early, pick late. But the thing we have to talk about is, guys, if you're outdoors, you really have to take this in consideration. Because I know a lot of people are cutting down and taking things down right now that are probably not ready. You know what I mean? So there's a good chance that you're not going to get the achievement of your grow that you want when it comes to smoking it, right?
Yeah, there's a point of no return for sure. I mean, some people are harvesting now because they're like, oh man, I'm gonna get bud rot. Well,
Exactly.
the guy who gets a little bit of bud rot on one branch or two branches here or there may also have the rest of his plant produce considerably heavier weight, because most of your weight is actually produced in your last 2 weeks of flower anyway. So at this point, a lot of these people that are harvesting their plants that should be going until October 1st are harvesting and getting half or less the weight than they actually should.
Right.
Thomas,
Not to mention the horrible effects they're going to feel from it.
let me ask you a question. What about, you know, I was talking to a buddy who's got his plants outside, and we were talking about, everybody's talking about this right now. But he said, yeah, you know, frost is okay. Like, at least like one night of frost is okay. What's your feelings about having the plants withstand a frost and letting them stay out there for that?
If you pick a strain that grows well in Vermont, it will have no problem making it through a couple of nights of frost. In fact, if you go and check out my Instagram profile, there's a photo on there that actually has snow on the bud. And that bud was harvested 2 days later in the sun in a 60-degree day, and it came out beautifully, and it was able to be smoked and consumed just like the rest of the CBD in the field. There were definitely a little bit of bud rot and some mold issues here or there, but for the most part, as long as it gets some sunlight during the day and it dries out, you're going to be okay. The biggest culprit isn't the plant freezing. The biggest culprit is getting wet and not drying off fast enough.
Yep. Airflow.
Exactly. Airflow, absolutely.
Right? We look at everybody's plants that are these huge, monstrous, 15 feet tall, 20 feet wide, but like you can't see through the damn thing.
Yep. And those are the guys that are like, oh, I'm going to have a 10-pound plant, but they only end up with 2 pounds of usable bud because the 8 pounds on the inside is one big pile of rot.
I mean, they're beautiful, but I mean, again, there's so many different techniques and ways to grow weed. I mean, when we bring these up, these are real issues, and we see it on our pages all the time. I mean, we've seen a little war break out in the last day just over a section of a plant from basic rookies. I mean, this is what we're here for. We're here to spread some love and educate people. But at the same point, there's a lot that goes into it. I think we discuss it a lot. We see it in the businesses, and this is something I want to talk to Tim about before the show is over. Is what we've seen in the last few days again with CBD Vermont, right? We'll go there in a minute. It's just the lack of funding, right? Like people just jump into this without, they go, oh, I can plant a plant, but they don't really know enough to ask about these questions that they don't know about yet because they haven't fucked it up yet enough to learn that they fucked it up, and they had theirs, oh shit, I can fuck it up, right? Because as much as we talk about how easy this plant is to grow, this is a plant. I mean, we have Mother Nature, we have issues, and we have temperatures. Like it snowed in Colorado. But Andrew, you bring up a great point, and Thomas made a great response. Yes, it's good for a plant to go through this, right? It's almost like a stress test in essence. You know what I mean? And then at the end of your growing cycles, you're trying to pull nutrients and things out of it so that energy goes right to where you want, right? That's why a lot of these growers that you see have these great plants. There's not much what we consider leafage on it, right? There's not much to it. There's just buds right at the end of the year because you're trimming it and you're bringing it down as you go. So that way you don't get this PM. The worst thing I hate seeing is when people talk about moldy weed and we know that the temperatures are changing and they're not trimming down their plants on an outside grow, right? We can almost look at it and I bet you in 90% of the cases, any grower that has any experience can look at that plant and tell you it's going to happen, right? I mean, we've seen it.
Joe, I'll tell you, I'd say I must have received 20, maybe 30 different messages in the last 72 hours, all with the same problem. There's these white spots on my leaves. There's this white powder on my leaves. What's going on? What's going on? Sorry, folks. Well, looks like you got PM. Unfortunately, when it comes down to mold in Vermont, it's a huge issue. And if you're not doing everything that you can to maintain a crop that's going to dry out throughout the day, you're going to run into these issues. If you have branches that are too close to the ground, you're going to run into these issues. If you don't take care of your plants, you're going to run into these issues. It's not corn, folks.
No, it's not set it and forget it. And even when it's outdoors, I mean, a lot of these guys, they're going out to water their plants every day. They're going out to take care of their plants every day. It's a full-time job, whether you're indoors or outdoors. You've got to make that commitment. If you're only putting in a couple days a week on it, you're going to get the outcome you're probably not wanting, right? And everybody complains about that. We all laugh when they say, "Oh, I go there every 3 days." Or my room died, or my something happened, and oops, you know what I mean? But
it's just like anything else, you reap what you sow.
And there's genetics.
The more effort you put in, the better your return.
And also genetics. If you buy a shitty genetic, right, that isn't been tested or put through its stages and back crossed and stress tested. Again, we bring it up a lot of stress testing. If you guys are unaware of stress testing, look that up, because I mean, you want to get a solid plant that's going to withstand, and you want to clone from or make a mom, or sometimes it's not the most beautiful plant in the room, right? Like a lot of times we all laugh about, especially experienced growers, it's usually the little ugly guy in the corner that produces the best, right? Just the guy, it's like a little tugboat that could, and at the end of the grow, there's always a guy who excites you and makes that grow worthwhile for you, where that most beautiful plant, you're like, man, you're pretty for a while, but crazy thing. So another great segment, Thomas. Again, thank you for giving that to
Well,
us.
Hell yeah, man.
Thank you, Joe. I love doing these segments, and unfortunately, I do have to say goodbye to everybody. Business calls, and I do have to go make a call right now. But hopefully, I will be back on, and if not, I will catch everybody next week.
All right, brother.
Awesome, brother. We'll catch you later. Thank you again, Thomas.
Great day.
From Vermont Grow Coaching,
later, guys.
Another great segment. You can find all Thomas's archives from the Vermont Grow Coaching Growers Guide Tips of the Week, I guess we could say, on our YouTube page. We're trying to push that. We're live there right now today, so we're having a lot of fun. Thank you guys for the ones that are tuning in and commenting. I know it's a big change kind of quickly. Facebook, I just barely got in my Facebook just now, a few minutes ago, so I'm trying to catch up. Now let's talk about this, Tim. Let's go to you real quick. Let's talk about the this whole thing going on with the oh damn, I lost my train of thought now.
CBD, Doug Bell.
CBD, yeah, CBD Vermont. I mean, it's come out that there's more people. I mean, we'll try not to bag anybody on this, but I mean, this is a concern because we not only are we experiencing it in Vermont, but it's happened across the country in a lot of cases, right? So it's something that is not new to the industry by any means, but like there's a lot of promises that get broken. There's a lot of contracts that don't get honored or even signed, to be honest with you, right? And these guys are left in the dust. And like, we bring this up a lot because to make a shift, like we were talking earlier, everything looks really shiny. Hey, come over here. It's real easy. It's a plant. You know what I mean? Let's change your whole farm over to CBD. Think of the revenue. You know what I mean? And what happens to these guys in these situations where, I don't think we've seen a result like this where, the state is actually taking him to court or he's being brought to court.
Doug Bell's an extreme case. There's
Right.
what you have to differentiate is between honest brokers and vendors and business people who honestly lose money, who are unable to meet their obligations due to maybe mismanagement, maybe poor weather, maybe factors that are outside of their control, the industry slumps. Those are issues, but those are issues that are part of business. What Doug Bell did was fraud. I mean, he just straight out ripped off Vermont farmers. He was a New York guy who came up here in his black BMW and thought he could pull some over on the roofs, and that really, I mean, it's so cliche, but that was exactly his mentality. So when I laugh because it's finally a little bit of karma coming to somebody who honestly deserves it. But what's not funny is the Vermont small businesses and farms that really got seriously financially injured by Doug. And I got to say, Washington State's Attorney Rory Thibault was very progressive, and he was very, I give him a lot of credit for bringing the charges. I think there are a lot of state's attorneys who wouldn't. I think there are lots of state's attorneys who would simply say, oh, bad business, bad contract, sorry. And he didn't. Rory saw the impact it's had on Vermont, on small Vermont businesses. And, I'm really, really happy to see it. I'm usually not a big fan of prosecutors or prosecutions. This is the exception, that makes the rule. Doug Bell, Andrew and I had one client in particular who was hit for almost $16,000. Doug's in negotiations with his attorney. They agreed. We drafted a settlement agreement. They signed it. And Doug simply never paid it. It wasn't just simply, he would manipulate and lie until he, I don't know, had some belief that things were going to work out for him. I don't know what was going through his head. But, I don't like being lied to. I don't like being lied to on a professional basis when all we're trying to do is negotiate a settlement for money that's rightfully owed to our clients. I don't like to be lied to time and time again. So, and my clients, again, they didn't want to get that either. So in a way, that was an extreme case. And that was a case where I believe that right thing was done, Doug. But, it does highlight a bigger problem in the industry, which is when it's not intentional. When, promises are made with the good intent of fulfilling them and then can't. And that becomes an issue. And what I wouldn't want to see is this is precedent to bring criminal charges against people who honestly tried to do the right thing. It's an important distinction to notice that Doug Bell never tried to do the right thing.
Well, that's why we brought it up. Normally, we probably let this one just go a little bit because, I mean, business is business, unfortunately, in some areas. And until we can get a system that's structured that either has insurance to protect the farm in this situation. Again, we go back to the insurance issue, not only for patients now, but for our CBD growers. I mean, we've seen some regulations and allotments to be had, right, through the FDA and the DEA for insurance purposes, but does it protect a grower in these situations? I mean, is there an option for these guys that we're not?
I don't
Go
think
ahead.
insurance for somebody who's gonna commit a crime against you.
Right.
But you know, like what we recommend, at least for larger deals, is to use an escrow service for larger deals, because that's, you know, then you can't always trust people in any industry. And the cannabis industry is no different. And we like to think, oh God, it's on everybody's cannabis and we love each other and we love the plant and all this, and we'll just go on a handshake. It's beautiful. I love that. But the reality is you can't trust everybody. All right. So if you don't trust, if you're dealing with somebody and it's a lot of money and it's an illegal substance, or arguably illegal substance that has to get shipped across the country, maybe you want to put the money in escrow, wait till the product gets there, and then have your escrow company dispense the money after the fact. That gives security to the buyer and seller, and that's really the best way, you know, to structure these deals. We'd like to see more of that. We offer escrow services at Vermont Cannabis Solutions just for these types of deals. And as the deals get bigger, you know, as you see kilos of extract going, and you're talking about some pretty valuable things that are moving across country. You know, everybody feels comfortable with more than a handshake. And no, the money's going in a law firm escrow account, and then when the product gets there, the money will be delivered to the seller. So that's, you know, that's one solution. But yeah, you know, it's business, right? You got to do business at arm's length, and there's some shady customers out there, and Doug Bell unfortunately took advantage of some people.
Right. No, it definitely does disadvantage a lot of people. It's insurance. I mean, like when we talk about insurance, there's crop insurance. If you qualify, right? I mean, there's certain avenues for that, right?
So the USDA allowed for crop insurance. They're not an insurance company. They basically said, hey, if insurance companies want to write policies, this is now an agricultural commodity legally under federal law. It can be insured. It can. That's the important part. Insurance companies, they're not going to the casino. You know, insurance is mostly mathematics, and it's probability, and it's statistics, and it's mathematical risk, and it's they use long-term history patterns to extrapolate out their risk pattern to set premiums. This is a very they got to fine tune. AIG is one of the largest companies in the world because they, you know, take guesses. So because they're exactly for the reasons Andrew said, there's no history. It's an incredibly volatile market. The legality still has questions to it. The prices plummet and are uneven across the country. There's no standardization. All of these factors make you know, insuring hemp. No insurance company is going to touch it. You know, maybe, you know, unless they have ridiculous premiums that are just absolutely through the roof because they don't know yet. That will change. That will change as the market steadies out, as we have more adoption across the country, as there's more standardization, as we have more normalization, as the market for hemp, whether it's for fiber and seed or for you know, kind of cannabinoid extraction, we will see those things come. It's still so early on. There's just no way they're going to have it ready in a year. Not insurance companies. They are a very conservative bunch. Let's put it that way.
I mean, crop insurance, if it was available, is going to cover you for losing your crop to hail or to mold, like Thomas was talking about, or stuff like that. It's not going to cover you because you sold your crop to some guy who wrote a bad check for it.
Right.
That's not going to be covered. So, and that's what Doug Bell did. He just wrote checks that he knew were bad checks, and that's why he's being criminally prosecuted.
And that's why it's fraud. Absolutely.
You know, he did more than he's had a couple chances to at least abide, right, and to make amends with these guys, and still, like you said, there's nothing going on. So charges are still forthcoming, if I believe so, right? I mean, it's a bad situation, but unfortunately, it does affect a huge market in a small state. You know what I mean? And then how do we protect these guys moving forward from a deal, an arrangement like this? Because again, we're seeing a lot of farms, not only in Vermont but across the country, give up their corn, give up their livestock, give up something that they were doing on a different note because they see green, right? Everybody sees the green, and they don't really, oh, hey, like you said, it's kind of like a Wild West kind of market still in a few states. So there's really gambles there, right? There's a lot of lines that we're towing, and we hope there's some sort of structure there enough that you want to shake someone's hand and convert your farm to 100 acres or wherever these guys grew in a mass of a collaboration, right? And there's a lot of people that have to agree to that, right? Like, how do you talk somebody into that in a market like ours without it being legal? I mean, obviously, federally, it's legal, but still a gamble if you burn some hot hemp, right? Which we've also seen, right? So,
Well,
we're in trouble, right?
well, yeah, and I don't know if you want to move to talk about. We talked a bit about the Vermont legalization bill, but there was some big news last week on the federal level for CBD processors, especially, and news that also affect people who are interested in selling other THC isomers, Delta 8 and Delta 10. The DEA came down with their interim rule. So just when, as we've been talking for months about the FDA, what is the FDA going to do about CBD and food? Well, we still don't know. The FDA hasn't come down with their rule yet. But guess who comes down with their interim rule? The DEA, of all people, with their opinion about, what is still a controlled substance and what is not a controlled substance. Long story short, there are two things about what the DEA said that are hugely problematic for our industry here in Vermont. One is with regard to going over the 0.3 Delta 9 THC level during processing. And the DEA came down and said that if during your processing of industrial hemp, your batch goes over 0.3% Delta 9, it's a controlled substance. And then all the products that you make with it are controlled substances. Well, that means that all of our products in Vermont, as far as the DEA is concerned now, are back to being controlled substances. So that's a problem. Number two, they said, even if you derive these products from industrial hemp, like if you derive CBD from industrial hemp, but if you then take the CBD and convert it into a THC isomer like Delta 8, and that's how people have been making Delta 8, they've been making CBD and then converting it to Delta 8. The DEA says, now what you've done is created synthetic THC. That's actually synthetic THC that you created using CBD as a raw product, and that is a controlled substance. So no Delta 8, no Delta 10, no other isomers, none of that stuff. And all the extract is hot, and all the products made with any kind of oil or extract are hot. So says the DEA. So huge issue. I mean, this could wreck the CBD industry.
Yep.
If they were right, and if they enforced it that way, CBD is done in this country. So there's been various responses on behalf of the industry.
All over the place, really.
Yeah,
people really took the industry by it really fucking sidestruck it, really. I mean, who was expecting anything to come out about that? I mean, we're just talking about Delta 8 a couple of weeks prior to that being like the hot commodity in the market right now, because it's not THC, it's Delta 8. It's different. It has a different effect. It has a different high, right?
Right. So there's two sides to the legal argument as it's shaping up, and the one side is what you just said. The 2018 Farm Bill says industrial hemp is cannabis with less than 0.3% Delta 9, and that's legal. And everything, it goes on to say, everything derived from that is legal. All the salts, isomers, there's a list. Everything derived from industrial hemp is legal. So the one argument is, it says right there, this is industrial hemp because it's less than 0.3% Delta 9. Everything derived from it is legal. The other argument on the other side is what the DEA is articulating and is saying, well, it goes to the term derived from. If you're making, the CBD is derived from hemp, with a simple process of extraction. But to turn that CBD into Delta 8, you actually have to, I don't know, use a highly secret patented process, chemical process though, and includes addition of other chemicals that are not cannabis into the CBD through a chemical process. It's heated. This is all really secretive. It's hard to find out how they do it. But that's how they create Delta 8. And so there's, there's two ways for them to argue the other side of that. Number one, because it's a chemical process, it's not derived from industrial hemp. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is because it's a synthetic process. If you look at the definition of the word synthetic, it is a synthetic process when you add other chemicals and heat it and so forth. And so the THC, the Delta 8 THC that you create is synthetic THC and therefore still controlled. So there are two really good arguments on either side of this. I believe that a couple of things. Number one, I think that the DEA has overstepped its bounds. They have no right going against what Congress said. Congress is the governing body, and Congress said that industrial hemp is 0.3 Delta 9 and every product you can make from that. So the DEA can't change what Congress said, and Congress spoke in the Farm Bill, and so the DEA is wrong, and they're overstepping their authority in this rulemaking. That's one thing. Number two, I don't give a shit what the DEA says about this, because the DEA believes that the entire marijuana industry is in violation of federal law, which it is. In California, in Oregon, in Washington, in Colorado, and every other legal state are all violating federal law, and the DEA knows it. And so for the DEA now to say, hey, guess what? CBD industry is also violating federal law. Maybe I don't care what the DEA says, maybe. Now, if your lease says that you won't violate federal law in this building that you rented, and all of a sudden you are violating federal law, maybe that's a problem. If your insurance company says, hey, you said you weren't going to be violating federal law and now you are, that maybe that's a problem. On and on, right? So there could be collateral consequences from this DEA rule, even though very unlikely that the DEA is going to enforce this rule about hot CBD extract when they allow marijuana to be sold over the counter every day in half the states. It's crazy to think the DEA would do anything to enforce this rule, but it may have a chilling effect on the CBD industry, even if they don't enforce it. And so Tim and I are part of a group of attorneys who's trying to challenge this, and we're planning on being part of a lawsuit suing the DEA over this. And we're right now trying to identify somebody who could be a good plaintiff in a lawsuit to sue the DEA over this rule. So stay tuned on that. We're going to challenge this rule and hopefully get it changed. So, but yeah, alarming times for the CBD product manufacturers and CBD extractors, and of course, for hemp growers, because if the extractors stop buying your biomass or your flower, that's a problem. Perhaps a nice opportunity for the flower growers, smokable flower side of things, again, looks great, because this DEA thing doesn't say anything about smokable flower. So yeah,
it's gonna be interesting to see how it proceeds out. I hate to cut it off right here because we gotta get Rodney on before he has to go. I think he has another show coming up. So Rodney, give us a little plug about what. I mean, you've had a busy day, man. We'll come back to this discussion on. It's just crazy what the DEA, the FDA, all these bombs are dropping. It seems like the last 4 weeks now. It seems like every week we're talking about something different. And you bring up a lot of great points, Andrew. So I want to make sure we stay on that subject. But Rodney's got to dive. He's got Cannabis 101 with our good friends Lauren and Jimmy Kang, who we all know well. If you guys know Jimmy, he's the vice president of Wu-Tang Management. They have a little show going on that's actually a lot of fun. They're doing a great job. It's Cannabis 101. It's on Unity Radio. They are WUTY 97.9 FM out of Worcester, Mass. So they have a great thing going on. There are a bunch of great people, and I've been in their studio a few weeks ago. So I was glad to see you on there, man. And with Seth, which is a good friend of the show, a Vermont guy.
Dude, that guy walked the entire fucking Appalachian Trail. No, I don't care who the fuck you think you are. I don't care how badass you think you are. That guy did it, and that guy was like, "Yo, check it out. I got weed the entire way." Like he's like, I had people just giving it to me. He told us a story on air. He was like, "Yeah, this guy, showed up with his son. We were just sitting at the top of a mountain, and he goes, 'Hey, go look over there,' and told his son to kind of walk over to somewhere around the corner. And this guy busts out like 5 bags of weed. He's like, he smelled each one of them. He goes, 'Pick one.' He's like, 'All right, I'm gonna get a free smoke. Cool.' Dude just gives him a big bag, and homeboy was like, 'Yo, that wasn't a small amount.' Like, and that got me, quite a good way in the trip. And I'm just sitting there thinking to myself, I would never be able to hike anything like the Appalachian, because he was saying it's a disconnect, and it was just insane to be able to talk to him about that. And it's just like, wow, that's crazy, man. But no, that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun in Cannabis 101. It was awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Jimmy. I'm doing this right now. I'm doing the segment this week on strawberry cough, which was pretty interesting. That was a really good one. Really, really good one. I got a really nice strain from my buddies here in Michigan at Sticky Mitts Cannabis. They hooked it up fat, I'll tell you. I got another one coming up next week. It's Blueberry Headband. They were like, "Yo, try these. They're amazing." I was like, yeah. Nope. It was amazing.
Anything with headband, man.
Oh, yeah.
And we had a discussion about blueberries the other week. So, oh yeah, that'd be a good one to review.
Absolutely. But no, this week it's strawberry shortcake. I really enjoyed it. It's interesting because upon the exhale of strawberry shortcake, that's when it kind of, or not shortcake, but strawberry
Cough.
Cough. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, it makes you cough. Definitely. It's a terp cough. For those who don't know what that is, Google that shit and let's compare notes, because it's kind of hit or miss. Strawberry cough is pretty amazing, man. It really is. Like, again, with the exhale, you taste the strawberry, and then like the cough is almost immediate. Upon the exhale, you're like, I think I'm good. And then you start coughing. I cough the entire time. But the cool thing is that's how it really gets its name, if you think about it. It's an expectorant, so that's pretty gnarly. Not to mention, I read that allegedly this strain happened by accident, and what I mean by accident is Kyle Cushman. Actually, this strawberry cough started from a small runt clone that he had that was allegedly grown next to his strawberry field. I'm not making this up. I looked this up, okay? And I was like, so wait, how does that even work? And he mixed it with a haze plant, and then boom, strawberry cough. And I was like, okay, so that's the weirdest story that I've read so far about genetics and like breeding of cannabis plants.
Yep.
But at the same time, I mean, all right, there's nothing else saying that this can or cannot be proven. But
well,
it's pretty gnarly.
He is known for the cough. There has been a couple of different people that might challenge that, but I think you have that in every strain, right? It's really kind of hard to say who's the first guy, especially when we got these guys. I mean, when we talk about even like Deliciously Dope TV, and then what the quest is, it's like going out to find a strain somewhere, right? Do you think you're really the only one that's ever walked out woods, found a piece of weed, and took it home with you? And did something cool with it? No. I mean, the chances of two things happening and crossing paths like that are very likely in the world that we live in, right? With the market that we have, the cannabis. I mean, look at the crossing and the genetics that are just going on right now, man. Everybody has a grow is just doing it to try it. You know what I mean? And if it's a success, then great. You know what I mean? But like we did discuss earlier with Thomas, we're losing a lot of that, the proper strong phenos, the hunting, the finding the right one, the one that can handle stress. So it does go outside overnight. At this point of our summer, right, whether it's outdoor, like we talked about Colorado, it's gonna love it. You know what I mean? It's actually gonna thrive from it. It's gonna give it a nice quick little shock, and it's gonna bounce back and love it. You know what I mean? Where some plants they might will. You know what I mean? You do run that musk, but it also depends again on that genetic, that strain that you're running. And it does. There's a lot of strains that grow in Alaska. There's a lot of strains that grow in weird areas of the world that never really. They have even worse grow cycles than we do here in New England, or better. You know what I mean? Like equator strains don't do well here. You know what I mean? So we have to be smart when we plant outside. But anyways, let's get we get the strain of the week with you.
Sure.
So we got strawberry cough. Kyle Cushman. Here we go, guys. Check this out. Yeah, Deliciously Dope TV. Tell everybody where they can find you, brothers. If you have to peace out.
www.thedeliciouslydope.com or on Instagram at deliciouslydope.tv or on Facebook at deliciouslydope.tv.
All right, guys, check it out. Here it is. Deliciously Dope Strain of the Week.
What up, Canna fam? It's your boy Chef Rodney with Deliciously Dope Strain of the Week. This week we have Myrcene Heavy Strawberry Coffee. This is an 80-20 split hybrid. 80% sativa, 20% indica. And although reports indicate an uplifting high due to the sativa, the effects can be rather stony. Again, hello indica. Think an enthusiastic high with a very little paranoia. Now, warning, smoke from this strain is typically harsh, causing many users to cough more than usual. It's great at being an expectorant, as I found out. This is becoming slowly one of my go-tos having allergies, but that actually gives it its name if you will. Now, you pair that with a strawberry notes of an exhale, and you'll find the name very fitting. Where did strawberry cough come from? Excuse me, speaking of cough, right? I mean, clearly smoking it. Well, Kyle Cushman is the creator of this strain, which happened largely by chance back in 2000. He took a runt clone that allegedly had been growing next to a strawberry patch and crossed it with a haze plant. Now, some research on this strain found it to be very high in myrcene, which gives it that earthy, peppery, and spicy scent. Common fact, a little known fact actually, myrcene is also found in thyme and lemongrass, just so you know. So if you're thinking about cooking with this, it would be amazing to pair with something with thyme and lemongrass. It's also worth noting its pinene content. The combination of these two terpenes working in tandem give it that, give the strain some special sedating and relaxing effects, which I found amazing over the course of this weekend when I was trying this. I picked it up from my guys over at Sticky Mitts, so shout out to y'all. They are just killing it in the game. They hit me with a bunch of different things to bring to you guys' attention, different things to try. And they told me, man, you got to get a hold of the strawberry coffee. So I did. And I'll tell you, everything is on point. Now, let's note the THC percentage on this. It's only about 17.5%. But again, that differs. I mean, percentages aren't really, the name of the game now. It's all chasing that experience, what's it like? Because 17% could mean something to me, but it couldn't mean anything to you. So everybody is different. So please note that. Now, with a flowering time of 7 to 9 weeks, I mean that's plenty of time. For this strain to do its thing. Really, honestly, some similar strains to this would be Maui Wowie, Blue Dream, and Silver Haze. Now, I can say this: I've had all of those strains. I remember all of those strains, and I can honestly say this is extremely similar to all of those strains. Now, without further ado, if you will, let's light this bad boy up. What do you say? Oh, this looks so tasty. You don't even know. Definitely strawberry notes in the end. Definitely just, yeah, no coffee. But damn, is it delicious. Now, excuse me, I'm going to get back to this. This has been Deliciously Dope Strain of the Week. I'm Chef Rodney, here with Strawberry Coffee. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Oh, yeah, there we go. That's a great episode, man. And you bring up a lot of great points about strawberry cough, man. A lot of people know it as a really great medicinal strain. And the effects are very, it really is. It gives you a cough. It has a sweet taste. Yeah. But as an ingredient in cooking, it really is a great strain to cook with. It's one that people are familiar with. It's one that people know well. And it's one that really has a great effect in food that, like you said, it's a desirable effect that you'd want to see in some sort of in edibles that isn't too crazy heavy. It's going to make you feel really nice. It's going to have a great...
It's interesting because it's like, it doesn't give you that paranoia. I didn't have paranoia at all with that. Common side effects with that, among all marijuana, man, dry eyes, dry mouth, it is what it is. Like you know,
Drink
water,
water.
water. Like
Hydrate.
that's. I actually got somebody that asked me. They're like, "Hey, chef, why are you always wearing your sunglasses?" I was like, "All right, listen. First and foremost, I'm extremely elevated when I do these things because let's face it, who wants to shove bright lights in your face and record something and be on point? At the same time, I mean, dude, it's kind of my job to ingest this stuff now and like be like, yo, this is what I think. We talked about it earlier. I'm gonna need about a pound. I'm joking, but no, not nearly that much. I'm just saying.
Just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there, guys.
Yeah, just keep going. Yeah, but it's really cool and it's interesting to be able to bring this to fruition, really, to be able to have this outreach and be like, hey y'all, this is really good, check it out. It did help me with a headache, actually. Funny story, because you always read, oh, it helps with headaches, oh, okay, cool. And you always take it with a grain of salt. I got a headache because obviously bright lights, and I was filming some stuff, and I had just dropped that commercial a couple of days ago, so it was like I was kind of recouping from that, and I got a headache, and I was like, you know what? Once there's no other perfect time to try this besides when you have a fucking headache. So sure as shit, I smoked a bowl of it. About 10, 15 minutes later, and my headache went away. I was like, okay, all right, you win, strawberry cough. You fucking win. Yeah. It's crazy, but I loved it, man. I loved it.
I mean, again, it is one of those strains that when we talk to patients, it's one that is perfectly spoken well of. You know what I mean? A lot of people really have a great effect from it. And again, lineage is great. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk lineage, and like you said, it's some of the best strains. It's either there's a great lineage story to it, or it was the seed that they swept up on the floor that no one knows what the fuck it is,
Right.
that they just back cross into something and it looks and tastes like something. So it's something. Right. You know what I mean?
So
And
check this. I'm actually going to be documenting. No, this is for you too, Joe. Everybody, now hear it out. I'm actually going to be taking this. I liked it so much, and I got so excited about it because the time in lemongrass that I actually want to make what's called a monkfish cassoulet. For those of you that don't know, cassoulet is basically French chili. This is a seafood chili, if you will. So what I'm going to do is infuse this monkfish cassoulet with the strawberry cough. I want to see what that does. I want to see what it tastes like, and I'm not going to remember Sunday. But the point is, we're going to do that.
no, I mean, perfect terp balance. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And when we talk about the cooking thing, that's the thing for it. So a lot again, everybody today, actually, we talked a lot about even in being thoughtful for going out there and learn how to cook. The show earlier with Lauren and Jimmy was great because I mean, it's just like everything else. It's something that people don't really feel confident in. Like, how the hell do I take this weed and make it into my brownie without eating weed? You know what I mean? How do I do it? You know what I mean? And then of course you post it on the internet and everybody comes back with 17 different ways to do it, and then how everybody else is wrong. So you, as somebody new, get these weird, like, all right, so what the fuck do I do? You know what I mean? You don't want to do it wrong. Not that any way is ever really wrong. There's just ways. There might be a better way. You know what I mean? You'll still get it in your brownie. Just you don't want to eat a stem. You know what I mean? Let's figure out ways around that, because I mean, there's butters, there's oils, and you make bringing you on brings a great point that with a butter or an oil you can substitute it for anything, right? I mean, in any recipe, it's really that simple. It's just making that butter or oil, right? And again, it's just like scrambling an egg. I mean, cooking an egg, there's 900 ways to cook an egg. How do you do it? What's the best way to do it? And what's your favorite, right? Do you like it fluffy or do you like it running? You know what I mean? And just like, with the way people pick their plants and terps that we were talking about earlier with Thomas, you know what I mean? Like, it's really, you can almost, by the way you take your plant down, create an effect that you're looking for, a desirable effect, right? Whether you do it early, on time, or later, or what your terp bubbles look like. You know what I mean? Your little sacks. Check them out. Are they clear? Are they amber? Are they getting cloudy? You know what I mean? And then there's stages. Once they go by that stage, there's no turning back.
That's just like checking the ripeness of a melon at your supermarket, Todd.
Exactly.
Really think about it. And so that's what it is. Is like being a chef in this game right now. Like, a lot of you, chefs out there, y'all know what it's like. Y'all know, you got your math down and stuff like that. Well, the one thing that we don't have down is putting terpenes or strains with specific recipes and finding out how other people do it. It's great to know that it's out there. We know this. We know how you can do a competition cooking show on it too. I mean, come on. But it's not a competition, all right? it's about you want to acknowledge it first and then compete about it later. You feel me? Like it's not something like, all right, well, before it's just it's stupid how no one has really been like, yo, let's look at the actual science behind this. Let's not just stop here. Cannabis is becoming legal across the globe. Fuck the states, real talk. Across the globe, it's becoming legal. Israel has their medical program going down, and then you heard about the dude with the drone that dropped a bunch of weed, and that's amazing. I want to go talk to that guy. Hell, I want to drive his drone. I want to drop some weed and do that and skybound people with brownies or some shit. I was talking about that earlier.
Yeah, right, with the legality of that.
Yeah, well, we got two guys here to ask. I'm sure they'll make it legal for us, but the point is,
It depends.
well, listen, I'm not trying to kill somebody with an aerial brownie, okay? I'm just trying to spread the good word like that guy did. Is it legal what he did? Is that even legal? I mean, he just gave it away, so I mean, you can't really get in trouble.
What's a donation
for it?
Yeah, you got to look at the state laws. Every state is different. That would not be illegal in Vermont giving it away. If it was truly giving it away, but that's because it's such a state-specific thing with cannabis.
Yeah, but the dropping it from a drone, I don't know if that's got any aviation issues to it.
The Israel thing. I'm sorry.
But that was that
was
Israel. Israel is way ahead of the whole rest of the world in research into cannabis. Wow. And some really interesting findings just a couple of weeks ago by Raphael Machulam, who's one of the leaders in cannabis research, and has identified, boy, it's really science. It's over my head. I'm not a scientist, but has identified a whole new set of receptors and a whole new part of the cannabis molecule that is just so more beneficial. He said THC is nothing. That was the gist of what he wrote last week. Did you read that, Joe? That was an amazing.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time now, and the cannabinoid, it's 300 times stronger than THC apparently. Yeah. And the big thing was, and you pointed it out, is people were talking about this a few years ago, and everybody thought it was kind of fun, right? Their research is oh shit, I'm trying to remember all the specifics behind that, but no, there's been. We reported people are claiming it's false. It just you can't do it. There's no such thing. You know what I mean? But when that comes out, like you said, the CB3 receptor is what they're discussing now, right? So they're realizing that this other cannabinoid interacts with the CB3 receptor, and there's been talks about it for a few years, and nobody's really done the research to this level yet, where they can actually put a stamp on it and be like, "This, we found it. We figured it out. This is another way we can do this." So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the takeaway for people like, people who are interested in the cutting edge medical research with cannabis should look to what's going on in Israel right now, and the studies that are coming out of Israel, because these guys aren't trying to say, oh, it's 300 times more powerful than THC, man, so you can get real stoned. That's not what this is about, right? These guys are really doing the medical research into the medical therapeutics of the plant for real, new drug investigations, like real new drugs, medicine. So that's super exciting. And it's good for people who like us, who just love cannabis and just want to see, recreational use. When you're talking to people, there's still prohibitionists out there, and you talk to people who say cannabis is a drug and no, it shouldn't be legal and what's going on. And you're going to have to talk to these people. And it's great to be able to tell them and speak articulately and say, hey, have you guys seen the research that's going on in Israel, where they're letting them look into this and they're coming up with cancer medicine? They're coming up with a cure for Alzheimer's. I mean, it's amazing some of the research that's coming out. Good. So,
I mean, if you Google it right now, which I just did, the CB3 receptor, which was correct. This is what we've been kind of like people have been hinting about for a little while now. It's all like, fairly up to date, brand new news. So there's a lot of stuff there, but you'll also find some older 2005 articles and stuff like that. So you see, it's been there, but they just haven't unlocked it. Or like all the other research that's been done up to this point, it's what's its validity? You know what I mean? Who's stamped on it? Who did the research? Can it be trusted? Is it? I mean, we've seen government-funded research that doesn't come out the way it was reported. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different things that are being, like you said, it's a stigma. It's being held back. Yeah. People don't want it to be legalized, so they're not going to let these things
Well, I think, I was starting to say too, that while all that cutting edge research is going on in Israel, they don't have adult use recreational cannabis in Israel. And so I think that was the publicity stunt by dropping those baggies with the drone, was to say, hey, come on, let's smoke some dope. Right? So,
I don't think they got in very much trouble for the weed. They were arrested. I think in Israel, they're a lot more concerned about a drone flying overhead, dropping unknown objects. So, that's a little more of a concern than the marijuana. And that's probably what they were actually punished for. They don't have adult use, but it is nowhere near as prosecuted as it is here in the United States.
Yeah. And Joe, I don't know how much time we have here, but if you want to talk about other places in the world, there's interesting things happening because Rodney, you point out like it's global, man, and so that's right on, and that's happening, as we speak right now, and so Mexico is super interesting. Mexico's Supreme Court said that the legislature has to come up with a cannabis bill, and so that's happening, and we have contacts in Mexico we were in touch with about that. South Africa is a pretty interesting market for cannabis, and both as a source for hemp and hemp flower and a destination. They're real interested in our CBD products from Vermont, I'll tell you that. But it's just on the cusp of being legal over there. We're seeing a lot of import and export with the UK and with other countries in Europe for hemp.
Take that idea, take that concept, and put the show Deliciously Dope, a journey into the world of culinary cannabis in those countries. Let's go to Canada and do a Canadian poutine that's infused. We'll talk about the medicinal properties behind it. Let's go to Mexico. Let's go to South Africa. All of those places, the culture, the cuisine. Those are the two important things that I really. Culture, cuisine, and cannabis, or the 3 C's, if you will. I want to bring those to the world. I want to be like, hey, listen, we're not the only ones suffering from a pandemic. We're not the only ones suffering from depression or X, Y, and Z. We're the same species of animal. Okay, we smoke cannabis the same way. We eat food the same way. We put cannabis in food. Guess what? The same fucking way, so let's make this world renowned. The more that I feel that we can hit that forefront, like you were talking about, and talk more about these countries and go there and see it. It's somewhat like what Jim Belushi's doing right now. He was just in, Colombia with Stephen D'Angelo on his show, Growing Belushi.
Yeah.
Or something.
Super interesting things happening in Colombia right now. The cultivation opportunities in Colombia. I was talking to a guy from Colombia talking about cultivating at 8,000 feet. There's no insects at that altitude. It's on the equator. It's like, 80 degrees, high temperature every day of the year. It's like a perfect natural growing condition. And so they're going to be able to grow, for pennies on the dollar compared to what it costs to grow in North America. And as we see this, the ability of the plant to move, even adult use cannabis to move across the border, in 10 years maybe, and really start of a real global industry where like maybe you can grow in Colombia and sell in the States, and who knows what, the future of cannabis will be globally.
I've got a really good friend in Lisbon, Portugal right now who said, hey man, when America lifts and stuff, I would absolutely love for you and your show to come see me. Let's cook on a beach. Let's talk about, that's what he does. He sells kilos of cannabis product to specific places around in that area. And I'm like, well, who are you selling it to? That's the one thing you don't ask. And that's not what I meant to say. I was like, well, what states, where is it going? Is it going to Georgia there? Or is it going to Ireland? Like, where is it going? Tell me where it's going. He couldn't tell me that because that's, that's private. Like he can't discuss that. He's got NDAs signed with them. He goes, I could literally be fired. And I'm like, just smoke it. You forget. No, I was joking. He's a great dude. I've known him since high school, but he's already invited me there. I've got friends in the UK. I've got friends in Australia, New Zealand. Like it's like the culture seems similar. Smoke it, kind of, forget about your problems, relax, kind of, assimilate what you have to do in life and kind of decompartmentalize a little bit. But I've noticed again with the foods around the world and the way that this is becoming, I wouldn't say united, but like we're all making it legal. Finally, you know what I mean? Like some headway, like not just in the United States, but worldwide. That way, if you want to go smoke a joint in Norway, you know where to go to get the joint. Let's not travel with it. B, you know where you can smoke, where you can't smoke, and C, I'm gonna point you in the right direction of, hey, yo, they may or may not put them in brownies. Tell them I sent you. You know what I mean? One of those types of things. So it's I'm really excited for this, this opportunity. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't think that there's a better way that I personally could have pivoted from COVID with this. Honestly, if COVID didn't happen, I'd probably still be in the kitchen right now, grinding my life away, chopping onions and mincing something for some asshole somewhere, and really working on like what I thought was an art. It is an art, but grinding your life away 90 hours in the kitchen, getting paid absolute dirt for some other asshole to get rich really isn't art. I've really come to learn that. But that being said, guys, I appreciate it. I do have to jump over to my other show now. It was a pleasure. I learned a lot, Andrew.
Great to see you, Chef Rodney.
Hey, man, always a pleasure. Joe, thanks for having me, guys. Until next time, you guys take it easy.
Educate to medicate, guys. Drink lots of water, right?
Absolutely. All right, brother. Cheers, guys.
Thank you again for another great strain of the week, Chef Rodney, guys. You can find him on Deliciously Dope TV. Go over there, show him some love. You make it. I have all night, guys, so it's up to you. But I mean, what's going on around the globe is definitely something that is interesting to watch and to discuss, because there's a lot of countries just kind of flying up out of nowhere. There's some countries that are really trying to make their staple, like you brought up Colombia, right? They're really investing into a cannabis market, which is great for them, right? Kind of changes the perceived connotations of what Colombia is now, right? I mean, they're trying to get away from a cocaine empire of realm, I guess you could say, and go into something like, we've seen their medical market is something that they're really trying to push down there. Things are changing globally. Are we going to, what is the, where do you think the next Mecca is going to be coming from? I mean, we talked about South Africa. That's a huge market down there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Latin America, Brazil is huge. Mexico, I think, is huge, being our neighbor and being the population that they have. I think there's places like China that are way ahead of us with hemp. I haven't heard much about an Asian adult use cannabis market. But look, I mean, in my opinion, all this stuff is happening, man. It's it's a matter of time before this embraces country by country, right? So
I know the Asian market is really against the THC side of anything cannabis, recreation or the medical market's been really open and listening. But I mean, some of these countries over there, I mean, that's a death sentence.
I know. But I mean, is that, you think that'd stay like that forever? I mean, that,
No.
Come on.
But do you think, I mean, honestly, I mean, let's be honest here for a real quick second. This is why I enjoy talking to both of you, because I mean, we're talking about all these other countries, we're talking about all these other things, and it's kind of like it goes back to the S54 debate. Like it's a matter of time, right? What happens in 5 months? What happens if it goes federally? What happens if we get our wish and the government goes, we're going to reschedule and decriminalize and do everything we all wish for, right? Like, I mean, the chance of that happening.
I mean, look, the rescheduling of cannabis, it still leaves it to the state to come up with a law to regulate it. I mean, it still doesn't. The Fed's saying, as they sort of do with alcohol, like, you guys regulate it. We're not going to regulate it. You guys regulate it. But somebody's going to regulate it. And so, it doesn't change. The federal legalization makes things easier, but it doesn't change your state law regarding adult use cannabis.
Right.
It might make it easier to get a bank account. It might make it easier to get insurance.
People will stop getting arrested in federal charges.
Yeah. It might make landlords more willing to rent their building out to you. All that stuff would be great.
What's likely is if they did legalize it at the federal level, is they would impose some ridiculous minimum regulations that the states would need to adopt, similar with hemp, like the USDA and we're seeing with hemp right now. That's an interesting one, because now that it's federally legal, you're still having state challenges to try to fit in within the federal legalization framework. What they're not going to just do is go, cannabis is legal, everybody have fun. they're going to say cannabis is legal under these set of circumstances.
Right.
If
Which
your
we just
state
saw in
plan
Maine,
is
right?
approved by whoever, the rest of it, yeah.
Right, like we just saw that in Maine where they just got hemp, the USDA just gave them approval for hemp, right?
Yeah, they had their hemp plan approved today, yeah.
So, I mean, you think by this point in time, you have a plan approved, 2018 Farm Bill. I mean, this is what we try to bring to light to a lot of people that are looking at these bills, and like I said before, like we we're discussing earlier, about the stallbacks. Even when we do get approved plans and an approved path, it does take a long time to get to somewhere. Maine's a great point, right?
Well, remember that their plan had to conform with the USDA interim final rule, which just came out, which had DEA addition. So that means the 0.3% total THC threshold, DEA certified laboratory tests, no remediation, several very, very, very difficult to comply with provisions. But I did see that. I was a little actually surprised. Apparently, though, in Maine's case, they're leaving it to the legislature to pass the laws. It's going to be in conformity with the plan when they reconvene in January. So I'm not quite sure how that works.
Anybody who has any state who's had their state hemp plan approved by the USDA means they don't really plan on growing much hemp.
Yeah.
Because you can't under those rules.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, that's what we're seeing right now is a lot of these states are getting the approvals. So it's gonna be interesting to see where the markets go. Like I said, what happens if things change? What happens? How do states do they flip sides if all of a sudden it's legal and we can create a market without any repercussions? You know what I mean? Insurance, banking. Like, do you think the bubble will even get a little bit bigger? I mean, we're talking about the bubble in CBD kind of coming down. We're talking about even in Israel. We brought up Israel as a great point. If you do any research on Israel, they've been talking about over there about their medical bubble coming down a little bit. You know what I mean? And I just call it's like the restaurant, thing where, you have one restaurant that dominates a city for so long and new ones pop up and new places are coming on board and new people are bringing a challenge to the table and then the wealth spreads, right? But we're talking about Israel and the funny thing is they're like you said, they're not recreationally legal. They've been able to study cannabis for a while. They've had a medicinal market, a very smaller one than most people probably understand for a while. And just until recently, it's gotten expanded. I think 2018, 2019, right? Somewhere in there. Being the forefront of cannabis research still doesn't guarantee that, we talk about Thailand, they're really supportive of CBD and hemp, but it's a death wish if you're growing cannabis. You know what I mean? It's a death sentence. Like they just don't fuck around when you cross that line. And then we're seeing, and you bring it to state levels. There's been a discussion about even raising the CBD THC levels. Is that something that we'll ever see get accomplished on a kind of state level raise? Mean anything on a federal level if they go to like 1%, which we've seen in some countries and proposing?
Well, I mean, this is why Vermont hasn't submitted their plan for approval because the 0.3% is not workable. So I mean, for total theoretical THC. So hopefully the rule will be changed. What a lot of people are saying now is that there'll be the 2014. The authority to act under the 2014 bill, which we're using right now, will be extended for another year or for 2 more years, and so that the Vermont growers can stick with the plan that we've been working under for at least for next season. If that doesn't happen, I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen for cultivators next season.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. I mean, obviously, politics is going to shape everything. I believe by this time next year. So whatever we're talking about now could be completely different. Again, S54 discussed in a pretty good, in-depth, and a great view on it too. A new view that we haven't really discussed in a lot of different places. You brought up a lot of great points. Where we're going to be in 12 months.
With S54 too, I mean, again, we all know about the opposition. We all know that there have been some very, very valid points made. we would just like the opportunity to address them, because some of the positions that people are taking most with S54, and what I hear the most, is that it is a corporate sellout bill. It's a bill that sells out the Vermont cannabis industry to corporate interests. And I just, for the life of me, there is no horizontal horizontal monopoly allowed. You can't have 5 dispensary licenses. You can't have multiple of the same type of license. Horizontal integration is what I was thinking of. You know, that's specifically prohibited. And there is no company corporate interest in the world that is going to have an interest in opening up one single adult use dispensary in the state of Vermont. It's just not worth it. Even one 10,000 square foot grow for the law, you know, it's not financially viable. They want numbers. They want 40 dispensaries in Miami. They want as many as they can get in New York. They want volume. That's how corporations make money. And cannabis corporations are generally small, underfunded, and losing money now. Last thing they need is one retail outlet in Vermont. And S54 protects that. It protects it for small businesses. So when I hear this is a corporate sellout bill, it just doesn't make any sense to me. You know, and that's the one thing I'd really like to address. You know,
I mean,
I just don't get it.
Well, we've already had one corporation pull out, right? I mean, Ianthus is pulled out of.
Right. Well, that wasn't a voluntary. We're going to make a decision that company collapsed because, again, yes, for the same reason most cannabis corporations are struggling. There's no capital. There's no money. There's no access to money. After the kind of stocks crash in 2019, investors dried up, and they had the only way they can get any sort of operating funds are at ridiculous, insane, you know, interest rates and just crazy terms. So Ianthus basically collapsed, leaving one of the dispensaries in Vermont licensed practically, you know, because there's no money. There's no money to be made. They can't put any more money into it. All the dispensaries are losing money. Nobody's making a profit because of the ridiculous regulations. It's mandatory. We talk all day about why, but you know, at the end of the day, there is no corporate handouts in S54. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's been one of those things that I wish we could really get to the bottom of, about why these concerns are there and address them, because this is the least corporate bill ever. No corporation that wanted to get into legal cannabis in Vermont would support this bill. They're going to want 10 dispensaries. They want one in each ski town. They want branding. They want the same, you know, name. They want the same layout. They want, you know, to have whatever, Joe Schmo's in pot in fucking Killington and Stowe and Waitsfield. And, you know, they don't want one dispensary. So I don't know. Again, you know, this has just kind of been one of those things that's boggled my mind over the last few months with the opposition when it's based around something that doesn't really exist. Now, there are some valid, again, I'm not trying to discount, there are very valid concerns. That I'm still not sure.
Or even just add that market to what you're doing, like you said, in Stowe, in ski resorts, in tourist attractions. It allows bed and breakfasts, hotels, ski, you know, a ski shop to be able to sell something over the counter that without having to go to a dispensary, right? It gives you that viable access to all that stuff, right?
Well, I mean, no, you can't just sell pot in anywhere yet. You know, that'll be something we'll be working on the Cannabis Control Board to try to get approved more.
Well, that's what I mean. You know, at some point, I mean, ultimately, that's what most people want to say. Like you said, when it comes to investment like that dispensary, again, we're talking about dispensaries are now going to rec. We're seeing it in Maine now, right? I mean,
well, again, you know, and this is, you know, you had said earlier something about medical getting squeezed out by rec. Remember, these are the same people. The same growers, they're growing the same pot. There's no difference in pot. What you're doing away with is 2 separate regulatory schemes, meaning a full regulatory scheme for a medical program and a full regulatory scheme for adult use. And what's happened is, just like Andrew was saying, in Colorado and Washington and Oregon, pretty much every legal jurisdiction, they end up merging. There are certain benefits that are bestowed upon medical patients. They don't pay sales tax. They have access to higher, you know, strength goods, whether it's higher potency edibles or higher potency flower or whatever, or a larger quantity of edibles or flower for their medical use. You know, there are common sense, I don't want to say perks, but there are, you know, extra additional allowances for medical patients. What there isn't is 2 separate regulatory structures or 2 separate governing bodies. You know, having one regulating the medical and one regulating the adult use, when really at the end of the day, they kind of both amount to the same thing. It's just, it's not efficient. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of time. It's a good example of government bloat. Should medical patients have access first? Absolutely. Should there be shortened lines? Yes. Should, there are accommodations that absolutely need to be worked into the program, but having two separate regulatory schemes. From what I understand, Maine is going to try this with their cultivation. They're going to have medical cultivators and they're going to have adult use cultivators. I'm curious to see how that works out. I think there are valid reasons to keep a medical program, for the integrity purposes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in Maine. It really, really will.
No, it's definitely. I mean,
Yeah, Maine is already going to allow co-location of medical and recreational places. So you could have a section of your building which is for medical and a section of it which is for rec. So yeah, it will be interesting to see who takes advantage of that licensing structure and how those businesses are set up in Maine. Tim and I are going to take a field trip to Maine to check it out in October.
Can't wait.
And make some contacts. By the way, we're interested in and available to help Vermonters or anyone get licensed in Maine. We're there to help with Maine licensing as well. So we're interested in that.
We had Robert Gagnon on last week. Was it last week? Yeah, it was last week, I believe. If I remember right. It's been crazy weeks. They're all blurred now. So I had Robert on, who is Nature's Gift up in Maine, Lebanon, Maine, if I remember correct. We went up there, beautiful place, but it's like you said, there's a beautiful, basically dispensary side, a medical side, and then they built out another room for the recreational side, which allows them to expand the market a little bit more, probably to. Obviously there's two different markets there, right? When it comes to now they can be more of a head shop kind of a recreational aspect more than an office, a doctor's office, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest, there's different.
Well, I've seen all of it. I've seen medical dispensaries that looked like a head shop, and I've seen recreational dispensaries that felt like a doctor's office. So, if you really get out there and look around and experience different ways to buy marijuana in different places, there's a lot. There's a wide range in different states. But yeah, you're right. The medical places, for the most part, I think that's the idea. They're supposed to be more like a doctor's office, and hopefully have somebody there that's, at least somewhat educated on that level. There's no cannabis doctors, really degree. There's no degree for the cannabis doctor, unfortunately. But the medical, the bud tender at the medical place hopefully knows a little more than hey man, it's 20% THC or whatever. Yeah.
Right. That's another issue too. Is that's another debate we could talk about for hours. Is bud tenders and the knowledge and what they know and who should be talking to the patients. Who should it be a bud tender in a dispensary that you can just walk in and get your license at, or does it need to be a doctor somewhere that you should sit down with and legitimately have a doctor's note for it? Not to say that anybody's doing it wrong or whatnot, but we stress the importance of structures and the way the system should run. And when we get into ag, things of that nature, how all this can change in a day. Who's going to run it? How? Where? Who's enforcing it? Is there a CCC? When we do have a CCC, what's the commitment to their goals, social equities, standards that we are preset, and then how long does it take to get to there? That's the other thing. We talk about another 2-year misfortune here in Vermont if we don't get this passed, and also we talked to Heather Murray Brown, that was last week, about New Hampshire, right? Because they just kind of went through the same thing, but they're dead in the water for a couple of years now. Then you got to establish a new program. Then you got to get it running, right? Like we said, how do we fund it? Everybody wants to fund this great program in Vermont, but unless we're going to have 5,000 people step up to the plate with X amount of dollars. How much is needed to get a CCC board up and running? Salaries, paperwork. All the steps that need to be put in place and on paper and on ink, they're available and ready to hand out and license to people. What's that cost? What's that cost the state? How do you fund it? So hopefully you guys, S54, you guys go out and vote for.
Well, we can't vote for it at this point.
Well, right.
It's in the hands of the legislators. We can't really.
Let's pray. Let's not vote. Let's pray. We can't vote for it.
It's out of our hands now. So.
Well, I'm thinking a lot about, people, and like we talk about politics, legislation. We're all in that campaigning season pretty much now, where we're talking, we're seeing there's people stepping up to the plate to, we talked about Zuckerberg earlier, you know what I mean? And in certain stances on political people here in Vermont, and what that entails. And then, we talked last week, Tim, about, some of these guys coming on being like, cannabis isn't even medical. Vote for me, you know what I mean? Or vote for Trump or whoever, and, we, on a political note, I think, you guys have actually hit it out of the park too. Yeah, it's a culturally, biasly based industry that's been it's been an issue for a long time. Social equity is something that we definitely need to talk about. But when you think about it on a political level, I think we've seen more bipartisanship now than we've ever seen anywhere, right? I mean, really, if you think about it, besides a few main key factors that we can discuss, Mitch McConnell's and people of that nature, we're seeing support on both sides, right? I mean, it really is it even a red and a blue issue anymore? I mean, I think we have the support for it. It's just when we get to that Senate, right? So when we get to the that last little end stretch, I mean, you guys have talked about
resolutions left and right. Supposedly they're going to bring the MORE Act to a vote. I'll believe it when I see it, but that's amazing. I mean, that is great. It's not going to get very far. It's not going to get to the Senate. This election is going to have a huge impact on a lot of policies, certainly cannabis, over for the next 4 to 5 years. This is a very, very probably more so than any I can remember in my life, in terms of dramatically different paths that are going to be taken based on what happens in November. Because we're looking at a completely new government if the administration changes, and that is frankly pretty much unheard of. Usually, Republican, Democrat, there's career, staffers who are there just beyond, and they don't work for the administration, they work for the position and for the Constitution. That's been pretty much thrown out the window. It's all Trump loyalists in our government right now. That's the only piece of people he'll abide. So when and if Joe Biden was to win, we're going to see a complete house cleaning. New head of the FDA, new head of the DEA, new head of the USDA, new head of the Department of Justice, new Attorney General, just straight across the board. So policies could very well, anybody's guess, but be very different than they are today.
No, that's what I mean. Like 12 months, we could be looking at a totally different scenario in multiple levels, good and bad, right? I mean, if the FDA, the DEA, all these guys kind of go that direction you were talking earlier, what I mean, where we're trying to clarify edibles and extracts and what that means even for the CBD industry. Like you said, like if this passes, literally 98% of the market is now out of those guidelines. What do we do with that product? What I mean? We want to talk about not supplying a black market or make a black market thrive anymore. I mean, are we to a point now where we can't really go back? I mean, there's so many things established, so many things running in the gray areas. I mean, we're still seeing these busts and seizures of huge amounts of products, right? It's not like it's not going to happen. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how it goes in the next 12 months, guys. Hopefully we're not still sitting here rooting and hollering for a bill to be passed where we have to go back and fight and see each other at the State House every day. And then, all those supporters that fought that battles, a lot of people sat through that. I mean? A lot of people were there. A lot of people, from both sides, dispensaries, everybody put a lot of time and effort into it. But like you said, if we can make a dispensary part of the system, why not? I mean, if they're only there for 5 months and our market opens up and we have a control board, why not, right?
The other thing I want to just mention about the whole dispensary head start, at least for our favorite dispensary, Champlain Valley Dispensary, they have 2 current locations under that license. They also have 2 under their Southern Vermont Wellness brand. Neither one of their current locations allows for adult use. In fact, they're, at least on both of them, from what I understand, I've not seen it firsthand, but I've heard it from a very, very good source, or a trusted source, that both leases specifically prohibit the sale of adult use marijuana. And we know their location downtown would be atrocious. It's off the beaten path. It's impossible to get to. It would cause traffic jams. I mean, there's no way they're going to let them sell adult use pot in the waterfront. So, you know, they don't even have the locations. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the product. As Tom was saying, you know, all the growers have to do if they really want to screw the dispensaries is not sell to them for 5 months. That's the protest.
Exactly.
Don't sell to them. They'll have no pot to sell. What are they going to do? Throw it themselves?
Back your way up. I mean,
so it's disingenuous to say that, you know, we want to throw away all of the hard work that's been done, label the people who have done that work to be corporate sellouts and whores and blah, 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 for an issue that's really not an issue.
That's what I say. I mean, to ship gears, like, to ship those gears, to pay that investment, like we were talking earlier. I mean, it's not a cheap investment for these licenses either. And if he's got multiple licenses and everybody has a lot, you know, there's these licenses out there. They were talking some pretty steep numbers just to get the licensing from the dispensary to do that. Now the dispensary still has the choice of whether they're going to do it or not. More than likely, why not? I mean, like you said, the cream will rise to the top. If they come out with a horrible product, it's who's going to buy it? Like, again, they could play themselves out of the industry fairly quickly here in the current situation that it is. Like you guys said, you know, what do we all want to see in Vermont? We all want to see, you know, this guy's over here is cannabis where I can drive up to St. Albans and grab this certain kind of weed when I'm up in that end of the state, because that's where it is. That's how cannabis was. You remember, you know, you go get the diesels, or you go get these certain strains, you know, West Coast, East Coast. It wasn't like we could, you know, our local guy had 5 strains. It was, this is what we got for a while, you know what I mean? And very few strains came and went because it's just the growers are growing what they grew. And a lot of it was, again, what you know, Thomas was talking about earlier. It's stuff that grows really well in your climate, in your area, right? Stuff that you can manage. That's why Maui Wowie's grown really well in the hotter climates, and a lot of people don't run it here unless it's a really hot grow room. And you know, it has certain needs that can be different than an Alaskan thunderfuck or a Madagascar thunderfuck, where, you know, these plants are bred in climates that are not equator-driven climates. You know, they're not, you know, they're lucky to see 70-degree days most of their life. So they're going to grow, you know, really differently. And then that's where we say, you know, with a lot of these people that grow outdoors, you're going to see a lot of these hemp farms are growing the same strains for a reason, because that's what grows well in their area more than anything, right? But if you're going to try to force it, like we said, you know, if you're growing a strain right now, that's, you know, indica heavy, it's probably going to take a while to get to the point of being crop, because there's how long it takes to grow a plant. So, but anyways, guys, what a show today. We're going to wrap it up really quick here. I thank you guys for the information. Andrew, I love talking to you, man, having you on the show, because it's definitely a different, I love having you guys in the same room. Well, no, it's just, I love.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. It was a great time. I love doing it. Anytime you want to have me on, I'm happy to do it. Thank you so much.
Well, perspectives are everything, right? And especially in law and in the way we look and read things, we should be open-minded to a lot of things. But in some, like you said, some cases it just doesn't make sense. In other cases, you know, there is some things we can stand up for. I mean, I can sit here and defend the dispensaries. You know, patient counts. They're restricted to plant grows. If they fuck it up, then it's done. You know what I mean? It's a whole cycle that they've destroyed, right?
Right. A combination of factors, an influx of factors that made our medical system an absolute joke.
Right.
Mismanagement of the dispensaries, arguably, that is definitely one of them, but it's by far the only one.
Right.
You know,
there's no accountability. I mean, we've been
all day on why our medical program sucks. It does suck, but it's not surely Shane Lane's fault 100%.
No, but we were here. What we're going on 5 years now, 6 years now, where it's been it's constantly gone downhill. I believe. I don't think it's gone anywhere uphill in any sort of fashion. There's no accountability. So it's like the more you play with no accountability, the more chances you're going to take, and the more you know, things you're going to cut. And then, like, again, with no accountability, who's going to slap Shane on the wrist for how many plants we're growing on peach greens? You know what I mean?
That's, without getting into specifics, that's exactly the issue. There is no oversight. There has been no, and it's not, you know, him getting favoritism. It is the agency tasked with managing this program hates the program, hated the program from the beginning. It's public safety, it's the police. They can't stand it. They've never liked it. They've never wanted it. The director, Lindsay Wells,
Then why
You
they,
know, I'm not going to get personal about things, but I will say that the agency did not care about growing the program, enhancing the program. It didn't care about the problems the program had. It basically did the bare minimum it was required to under statute, and that was it. And the patients of this state suffered for it. And so if I'm going to really blame anybody on this fiasco of our medical program, it's the Department of Public Safety, and it's this.
Well, that's where I'm going with this whole conversation. I mean, unfortunately, the dispensaries, you know, they make a choice every day on what they're doing with what they're doing, right? But when your hands are so fucking tied up, and you're, like you said, what business wants to come and invest into a dispensary in Vermont? I mean, the numbers make no sense. The structures, the financial structures make no sense. How do you make a living doing that? And then when they handcuff you to patient counts, right? I mean, are we doing fraudulent patient counts? I mean, there's a lot of things we can discuss, but at the end of the day, it's by a patient count. You only get there many plants. So again, you fuck up a grow, you have an issue. You know, you're growing on pavement. You know, I mean, there's all sorts of things that we've seen and heard and know very well. You know, it's going to push you to process that moldy weed into a cart, right? I mean, you don't have another option. Otherwise, what are you going to say no to your clientele for a month to 3 months?
Well, that's an example of mismanagement. And I'm saying there has definitely been mismanagement as well and poor decisions made. But a lot of that was out of necessity, out of just simply trying to comply with incredibly restrictive, in some cases absurd regulations. You know, our program was doomed to fall from the beginning.
I mean, some states, there's locks on his doors and he's not opening up again. I mean, we've seen, you know, states move in on some of these dispensaries that have mold issues and issues that weren't meeting demands and quality issues. And, you know what I mean? We've seen doors get locked, you know what I mean? And, you know,
people go to jail. We've seen people go to jail. Sweetleaf, you know, in Colorado is a prime example of that. Looping, selling more, you know, selling an ounce to somebody, I'm going to go out to the car, come back in, sell another ounce. Yeah, people going to jail for regulatory violations. That is adult use. But in Massachusetts, you've seen medical dispensaries lose their license for improper disposal, throwing stuff away in a dumpster without mixing it with the proper blah, 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 blah. You know, I mean,
and that was a lab too.
Resulted in a license getting.
Yeah, and that was a lab too. I mean, we won't discuss which lab it was, but they did have a violation where they were caught disposing of product as well in the dumpster unsafely. We've seen the issues that it causes. I mean, obviously it's a hotspot, so the spotlight's on these guys. It's not like every industry does everything perfectly right, but like again, we have to have the structures. There has to be accountability held somewhere, right? Otherwise, like you said, it's the Wild West, right? You make your own laws and you hope nobody catches it. You know what I mean? You can outgrow, you can overgrow. And then the thing that questions me, especially with the businesses like this in Vermont, is they have other CBD businesses. So what's really working for what and who and how and where does the separation, you know, entail, and then who's watching that separation, right? I mean, you know, things can be managed in really shady ways when you get into these weird, you know, hey, I'm going to have 5 cannabis companies and one's a dispensary. You know what I mean? In a state that's unilateral, that you can't, you know, have other, you know, relationships with other business. You tell me, you know, I question a lot of things on that back then. But anyways, hopefully we can get Cannabis Commission in. Hopefully, guys, I know we can't vote, we can't push, but we can still, there's still some time to call. Like you said, I mean, what's the future looks like if this doesn't pass, and I think Andrew nailed it right in the head. These guys are sick of listening to us. They're sick of us cheering on the front steps. There's a good chance that a lot of these elected officials will be different next year. Some will be pro, some will be against. You know, I haven't looked at every candidate that's running. You know what I mean? You know, Tim has brought up a couple of great new fresh faces that he sees that are very positive for the cannabis industry. Guys, do some research. We have a governorship that's going on right now as well. That's going to be a pretty hot subject here in Vermont, and then obviously in most other states as well as a presidential running. That, you know, it's very scary for the future of cannabis unless, you know, the administration that sits there now currently lives up to some of its promises that they made, you know, a while ago now. You know what I mean? Where we thought we were going to this and we thought we were going to this, and exactly like I thought 6 months ago, it's just going to come down to a campaign play. Which, who knows? He could tweet it out tomorrow morning that we're going to change some laws, right? I mean, could that literally happen?
Andrew?
Yeah,
Well,
sure. Anything can happen.
right. We can pardon this person, we can pardon that person, we can change all these laws, but I just feel like there's another major foot draggage being held on the government level. You know what I mean?
We're never done.
Get
We're
it
never
pushed.
done. It's never finished. It's a journey, and it's one step at a time. It's not like we're going to legalize and say that's it, that's the be all end all. The day two, we're going to celebrate, and then we're going to immediately identify the parts of the bill that we need to start petitioning to change. Because that can be done through an administrative rulemaking process. So we never give up. We're never going to stop. We're never going to keep pushing for what everybody does want. They just have to realize it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen instantly. It's a process.
It's a lot of work to get there.
We just have faith, man. We're on it. We're on it. Andrew and I are on this.
Don't give up. I mean, unfortunately, hopefully these laws don't put too much of a hindrance on the industry. Otherwise, I mean, it's hard to, like you said, it's hard to compete in the industry on multiple levels where until we get these regulations, you're forced to run that black line, that black market line, you know what I mean? And then people get caught, weird things happen. We're seeing dispensaries with messed up licenses, and now we're seeing California change a lot of their approaches, and are people going to start fleeing California now? You know what I mean? Like, all these rules and things against cannabis, and then now we tax structures and everything going on with COVID. It's interesting to see what they're doing. You know what I mean?
All right, Joe, we got to call it quits too. I think it's almost 7 o'clock. I got to get to dinner. My manager's going to kill me.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Again, thank you guys for coming on.
Andrew, it's great having you on, dude. Just come on more often.
Yeah, there's always a seat open for you,
Hey, it
brother.
was
There's
fun,
always
man.
we try to engage people to converse on as many different ideas as I can, and it's always great to hear, especially when you guys in the same room. You know what I mean?
It's cool to see this background too.
Yeah, right. I mean, and you do get amped up for a few certain things, which is fun to see. But you guys make a lot of great points, which again, sometimes I feel like we beat a dead horse, but again, people just need to understand, because we still see people getting arrested, we still see people have to call you guys. And we're still just seeing, just silly little things that shouldn't be happening, whether they're legal or not, or whether we want them to be that way or not. But at the end of the day, people are not understanding of what's going on. And it's a confusing world, and especially when we break it down state by state and process by process and law by law, it gets even more confusing. Hopefully we get done. We'll talk to you guys shortly. Again, thank you. You guys can find
We'll see you next week.
All right, we're on YouTube, so hopefully the archive's already there, so we can just share it out from there. Sorry guys about the technical difficulties today. Facebook we won't discuss it. Hopefully we'll have all the internet issues worked out. We got an appointment tomorrow, and we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy your week.
Bye, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you again, and guys, Andrew, Tim, Vermont Cannabis Solutions. You guys can find them in Burlington, Vermont. You guys just reach out to them on social media. And again, find us, like us, love us. And while you're watching the show, if you had a chance, hit the subscribe button and watch us. Where we will have all of our archives and our growers guides every week and our strain of the week. So guys, don't go anywhere in the weeds. We'll be back next week. Talk to you guys later.